Chapter 658. Most of the people present had known about this long ago, but they still revealed a surprised expression. After all, this was Lei Qingjuan's birthday banquet. Not mentioning the birthday banquet, but going straight to the main topic, wasn't it a little too fast? The princes all clenched their fists. Their fates would change greatly today. Some might even be able to ascend to the throne and become the person in charge of the 3 dynasties. Of course, they might also become the first target of the new emperor's purge. They would not be able to escape death. This birthday banquet not only determined their fates, but also their lives. Lei Qingjun did not care about the reactions of the crowd. He continued, "Today, I will open the void scar sky. The Thunderfire Pearl, the heirloom of the Thunderfire dynasty, is inside. Whoever finds it will be qualified to inherit the throne. In addition, the Dark Thunder Guards, Discipline Commission, Patrol Guards, Dukes, Marquises, the military, and Spirit Cultivator sects can all enter. However, there is a limit to the number of people who can enter, and the highest cultivation can only be at the Spirit Astral Realm. The Void Scar Sky has not been opened for more than 100 years. What opportunities you can find inside is up to you." Everyone's face lit up with joy. They said in unison, "Thank you, Your Majesty." After Lei Qingjun said these few words, he appeared to be much more tired. He half reclined on the dragon throne and just looked at everyone. Among everyone, only the envoys of the Starfall dynasty had nothing to do with the matter of the crown prince. They just wanted to watch the show. Suddenly, a person appeared beside Lei Qingjun. That person was dressed in a yellow robe and had a solemn face. From his appearance, he looked very similar to Lei Qingjun. As soon as this person appeared, many people exclaimed. It seemed that some people knew his identity, but most people did not know him. Ling Shiqi was one of them. He transmitted his voice to Eunuch Gao, "Master, who is this? I see that His Majesty is quite respectful to him." Eunuch Gao was also surprised. He said, "This person is His Majesty's twin brother, the Shoddy Prince." When His Majesty ascended the throne, King Zhuozhen was the one who contributed the most. In fact, many people thought that King Zhuozhen would be the next emperor. However, he eventually gave the throne to His Majesty and entered the Imperial Worship Hall. The Imperial Hall of Worship is managed by the humble prince. He is a Sky Origin stage cultivator, but he hasn't shown up for decades. I didn't expect that His Majesty would ask him to come out. Ling Shiqi nodded in understanding. Even the person in charge of the Imperial Hall of Worship had come out. This birthday banquet was indeed going to be a big event. He did not believe that Lei Qingjun was only here to select the crown prince. There must be some other purpose. Eunuch Gao continued, "The Dark Thunder Guards only have 1 slot to enter Void Scar Sky. I'll count you in." "Thank you, Master." Ling Shiqi thanked Eunuch Gao. At the same time, he understood Eunuch Gao's intentions. A few days ago, Eunuch Gao had made him a deputy general manager with no real authority. Now, Eunuch Gao had allowed him to enter Void Scar Sky. It was nothing more than a slap in the face and a sweet date. King Zhuozhen opened his mouth. His voice sounded very deep. "Those who enter Void Scar Sky, please come forward." Eunuch Du said, "Each prince can bring a maximum of 10 people. The same goes for the Dark Thunder Guards, Discipline Division, and Patrol Guards. The Duke's Mansion and the General's Mansion will each send 1 person. The first-rate sects will send 1 person, and the top sects will send 3 people." Instantly, there was some noise from the crowd. Based on this, there were only about 200 people who could enter Void Scar Sky. This was because many of the Spirit Cultivator sects had already submitted to the princes. If they entered as the prince's retainers, then they did not have the qualifications to enter. Ling Shiqi also walked forward. Delta Origi stood not far from him. The two of them looked at each other. In that instant, they reached a tacit agreement. However, to Ling Shiqi's surprise, Ling Yu of the Blood Clothing Pavilion also stood up. He was a great master of the unity of heaven and man realm. He could not enter Void Scar Sky. Leng Yu's action also attracted many people's attention. However, to everyone's surprise, two clouds of black fog suddenly rose from both sides of Leng Yu. Then, two figures walked out of it. Both of them were wearing the golden-striped blood clothing of the blood clothing pavilion. Obviously, they were golden-striped blood clothing assassins of the spirit gang realm. Both of them were wearing masks. One of them had a sparkling jade tree engraved on his mask, while the other's was a shadow. For the people present, golden-striped blood clothing assassins were not rare. What shocked them was, how did these two people appear? Don't make a fuss. Elder Bu of the wonderful sect said, these two people have been here since the beginning. It's just that some mediocre people did not notice them. The blood clothing pavilion's concealment technique is indeed extraordinary. As soon as he said that, many people's faces turned red. However, Elder Bu was a master of the Sky Origin realm, and the wonderful sect was one of the most powerful sects in the Thunderflame dynasty. No one dared to confront him, so they could only swallow their anger. Leng Shiqi was also shocked when he saw the two people who suddenly appeared. Others might not know them, but he definitely knew the Delta Origi. They were Yushu and Meng Ming. Leng Shiqi did not expect that they had already reached the spirit gang realm. He clearly remembered that the last time he saw Meng Ming, he had just broken through the spirit aperture realm. They must have had some adventures recently. The reason why Leng Shiqi did not notice them at first was that there were too many people here. He did not activate the supercilious eyes, so he did not notice that they were hiding. This was really a great deterrent, but it would make the blood clothing pavilion more important in the hearts of many sects. Unexpectedly, the four people who left the Blood Fog Island together would reunite at Lei Qingjuan's birthday banquet. According to the hidden rules of the sects, the blood clothing pavilion was not allowed to participate in this kind of secret realm competition. At first, some people expressed their dissatisfaction, but the emperor of the Thunder Flame dynasty, Lei Qingjun, did not care. The humble king did not refuse, so others could not say anything. After all, the Space Scar Sky was the secret realm of the Thunder Flame dynasty. He could let whoever he wanted in, and no one else could stop him. In Leng Shiqi's view, the blood clothing pavilion was just testing the waters this time. As long as there was a precedent, it would not be so difficult to accept in the future. The humble king did not care about this small disturbance. He made a seal with his hands, and spots of golden light appeared in front of him, forming a huge gate. Then he waved his hand, and hundreds of spots flew out and landed on everyone who wanted to enter the Space Scar Sky. This is your life plate. If you die in the Space Scar Sky, the outside world will know, he explained. Hearing this, everyone's heart sank. The humble king meant that they could kill people in the Space Scar Sky. But this was Lei Qingjuan's birthday banquet. How could they kill people at the emperor's birthday banquet? What was Lei Qingjun trying to do? This question lingered in everyone's minds. The attitude of the Starfall dynasty's envoys, who were originally watching a show, began to change. The Space Scar Sky will only be open for 3 days. Everything will be clear in 3 days. Everyone, go in. As soon as he finished speaking, the golden gate slowly opened. In an instant, golden light shone, enveloping everyone in front of the gate. In less than a breath's time, the golden light disappeared. At the same time, the 200 or so spirit cultivators disappeared as well. Chapter 659. When Leng Shiqi opened his eyes, the first thing he felt was the spiritual energy of heaven and earth surging towards him. From what he could tell, it was at least 10 times stronger than the outside world. Even if he did nothing, cultivating here for 3 days would not be a waste. Leng Shiqi looked around, and all he could see were lush forests and rolling hills. He looked up from a high vantage point, and all he could see was the same. The strangest thing was that there was a crack in the sky that stretched all the way to the horizon. It looked like a broken mirror. He muttered to himself, legend has it that Air Scar Sky is about half the size of a province. With only 200 people here, it's not easy to even meet others, let alone find the heavenly Thunderfire Pearl. Leng Shiqi did not forget that the princes were most interested in the heavenly Thunderfire Pearl. However, Lei Qingjun had only said that the heavenly thunderfire pearl was in air scar sky. Looking for a pearl in such a large secret realm was like looking for a needle in a haystack. However, Ling Shiqi did not mind. He had only come here to reap some benefits. The heavenly thunderfire pearl had nothing to do with him. He then opened the system map. After the system had been upgraded, the system map's functions had become more powerful. Not only could it show all the landforms of air scar sky, but it could also show places with abnormal spiritual energy. These places either had heaven and earth treasures, or they were dangerous. In order to ensure his safety, Ling Shiqi even tried to use the fate skill and the underworld. He found that both of them could be used in air scar sky. This made him feel relieved. As long as he could use the fate skill and enter the underworld, he would be invincible. After being ambushed by Li Juning and Meng Tiantian's appearance, Ling Shiqi had become more cautious. However, he did not enter air scar sky to fight with others. He was here to search for treasures. Ling Shiqi opened his pet space. A pink pig jumped out. It was the four-legged metal-swallowing beast. After being fed by the Ling Shiqi for a long time, the four-legged metal-swallowing beast was already a rank 5 monster beast. It could detect treasures within a radius of 100 miles, and the highest it could detect was rank 6 materials. Ever since he had obtained this beast, he hadn't had the chance to use it. Now, it finally came in handy. Although there were many natural treasures in Void Scar Sky, it was impossible for them to be found everywhere. With this four-legged metal-swallowing beast, he could go on a rampage and make a fortune. That was good. Ling Shiqi picked up the four-legged metal-swallowing beast and said, "Let's see if there are any treasures nearby." The little beast twitched its nose as if it was smelling something. Then, it actually spoke in human language, "Master, there's something good 50 miles north." Ling Shiqi smiled with satisfaction. He found the right direction according to the system map, and with a light step, he was 2 miles away. During the time when he returned to the imperial capital and was in seclusion in Xingji Pavilion, he didn't deliberately deduce any spiritual skills. He spent all his time comprehending the state when he killed Li Juning. Now, although he was far from that level, he found that he had an inexplicable sense of intimacy with the earth. He seemed to be able to control the power of the earth invisibly. For example, he didn't use any spiritual skills just now, but the effect he achieved was comparable to a rank 6 body movement spiritual skill. With such speed, Ling Shiqi arrived 50 miles away in a moment. There was a deep cave here. Ling Shiqi opened his eyes and immediately saw a huge breath in it. And judging from the size of the breath's owner, it seemed to be a snake-shaped monster. And it was a rank 5 monster comparable to a master of Gang's spirit realm. There are still monsters in Void Scar Sky? It must have been deliberately thrown in by the Thunder Flame dynasty to raise them. Ling Shiqi thought to himself. Then he strode into the cave. Sure enough, it didn't take long before the snake-shaped monster rushed straight at him. In terms of speed, it was far beyond the ordinary Gang's spirit realm. However, this kind of speed was not enough in front of Ling Shiqi. With a thought, a faint yellow light flashed, and the demonic beast was hit by an invisible force and was instantly pressed to the ground. Ling Shiqi saw clearly that it was a green giant python. At this moment, the giant python was pressed down by gravity. Even if it struggled hard, it could only twist its body slightly. Since there is a rank 5 monster guarding here, the treasures in this cave should be of high quality, including you. You are also a good material. Ling Shiqi said lightly. Then a light bloomed behind his head. A mini light golden sword shadow appeared and shot into the giant python's head in a flash. Then, the look in the giant python's eyes quickly disappeared, and even its vitality disappeared. After Ling Shiqi suffered from the backfire of using the law of heaven and earth and was sneak attacked by Meng Tiantian, his spiritual strength had improved a lot. He was now able to condense the sword of primordial spirit. Generally speaking, only spiritual casters in the middle and late stages of oneness of heaven and men could have such strong spiritual strength. The giant python died just like that. Thinking back to when Ling Shiqi was in the demonic miasma mountain range, a rank 3 demonic beast almost took his life. But now, he could casually kill a rank 5 demonic beast. But he didn't feel anything in his heart, as if he had just done a very ordinary thing. He put away the giant python's body. He didn't kill it with the sword of primordial spirit to show off his skills. Besides, there was no one else here. He was actually afraid of damaging the giant python's body. The value of a complete corpse like this would be much higher. Then, Ling Shiqi walked to the deepest part of the cave. There was a short bamboo here. The bamboo was pure black, and there was a faint demonic aura around it. Ling Shiqi raised his eyebrows. Could this be a rank 6 material, weeping soul magic bamboo? This is an excellent material for refining demonic weapons. Not bad, not bad. He carefully moved the weeping soul magic bamboo into the system space. Then, he took out a few spiritual stones and fed them to the four-legged metal-swallowing beast. Little thing, so you're quite capable. The little beast proudly raised its little head like a human and didn't forget to chew on the spirit stones with a crunching sound. Come, let's continue. Just like that, Ling Shiqi brought the four-legged metal-swallowing beast to plunder all kinds of treasures in Air Scar Sky. In just half a day, he had obtained many rank 6 treasures. It could be said that he made a lot of money. During this period, he hadn't met anyone else. After all, the number of people who came in to cultivate was too small. Even if he wanted to meet someone, it was not easy. After more than 2 hours, Ling Shiqi arrived at the next treasure place. But from afar, he sensed the fluctuation of spiritual power from a fight. The treasure here had been discovered and started to fight for it. Ling Shiqi opened his eyes. His expression immediately darkened. In his perception, there were 5 spirit astral realm masters besieging 2 spirit cultivators at the first level of spirit astral realm several miles away. Those 2 were Yushu and Meng Ming. Chapter 660. 7 gang spirit realm experts were fighting fiercely beside a sacred tree emitting pure blue spiritual power. 2 of them were wearing the same blood-red clothes. They were Yushu and Meng Ming, who came with Leng Yu. Out of the other 5, 3 of them were also wearing aqua-blue robes, while the other 2 were dressed in luxurious attire. The 5 people were in the early, middle and late stages of gang spirit realm. Obviously, they had the upper hand in the battle. After all, Yushu and Meng Ming were just in the early stages of gang spirit realm. Even if they were strong, it was difficult for them to face 5 gang spirit realm experts. What was more, in Ling Shiqi's view, Yushu and Meng Ming were both practicing assassination. Now they were surrounded by so many people. 6 years ago, several elders of our Yenshui sect were killed by the killers of your Blood Cloak Pavilion. You have been hiding, but now you dare to show up. Today, I will avenge your elders. The dark and thin middle-aged man said angrily. Yenshui sect was one of the top 9 sects in the world. There were 2 Sky Origin realm experts in the sect, which was famous in the region. 6 years ago, Yenshui sect led a group of young disciples out of the mountain for experience. As a result, 1 Heaven Man realm expert and 3 Gang Spirit realm experts were assassinated by the killers of the Blood Cloak Pavilion. Yushu's mouth was not idle even as he fought. Pooh! You're blaming me for not being as skilled as others? What's more, it was someone else who wanted to kill your elders. Why go against the Blood Cloak Pavilion? Nonsense. You killed them. It's natural for you to pay with your life. Then aren't you afraid of offending the Blood Cloak Pavilion and killing the disciples of Yenshui sect every day? Yushu broke their joint attack with 1 strike and continued. This is Air Scar Sky. Who knows how you died? Ha ha ha. Yushu also laughed wildly. Well said. I'll say the same to you. In the next moment, Yushu's eyes were suddenly tainted by a thick black color, leaving only a hellish darkness in his eyes. He held the spirit saber in his hand, and the spirit light of the saber suddenly shrank. Even the aura of Yushu's entire body became still. Yushu stared straight at the dark-skinned man. He actually felt as if he was being solidified by death. For some reason, a great sense of despair suddenly rose from the bottom of his heart. He clearly had the upper hand in terms of numbers and strength. If nothing unexpected happened, it wouldn't take long for him to kill these two blood-clothing pavilion assassins and avenge his master. But it was so inexplicable that his situation seemed to have been reversed. He was always on the edge of the cliff, and if he wasn't careful, he would fall into the abyss and die without a burial place. In the face of death, despair instantly spread throughout his entire body. The black skinny man's body instantly stiffened. Yushu coldly smiled. Even though he was wearing a mask, one could still see the cold smile on his face. Immediately, a saber light flashed, and the black skinny man was directly cut into two halves. Strangely, those who were fighting stopped at the same time. The four gang spirit realm experts were all shocked. Especially the remaining two Yenshui sect disciples, their faces were full of astonishment. They were fighting well just now. How could they be killed in the blink of an eye? How could the blood-clothing pavilion disciples be so strong? Junior brother Shui. Go to hell. The two flew into a rage and hit out their palms at the same time. Instantly, gang spirits swept over like huge waves, as if to tear Yushu into pieces. At this time, Xiongming moved his body, and the black air around him soared into the sky. Several huge ghost shadows walked out of the black air, each of which had the strength of spiritual aperture realm. As soon as the ghost shadows appeared, they fearlessly entangled the four people. For gang spirit realm experts, it was a piece of cake to break the ghost shadows. The ghost shadows that rushed to the Yenshui sect disciples were swallowed by the wave palm force before they even got close to them. However, they didn't notice that Xiongming's figure had disappeared. At the same time, Yushu also turned around and ran away. His breath was rapidly weakening, as if he had lost a lot of his spiritual power. Seeing this, the Yenshui sect disciples hurried to catch up with him, but they didn't know that Xiongming had appeared behind them like a ghost. A pair of ferocious fist blades appeared on his arms, and the fist blades were like two evil ghosts opening their mouths and rushing forward. The two Yenshui sect disciples also noticed the abnormality behind them. They waved their arms, and huge waves rolled back, destroying Xiongming's figure in an instant. The blood-clothing pavilion is just a so-so. Seeing that Xiongming was killed so easily, the two people who were shocked by Yushu also felt relieved. After all, they were all disciples of top sects, and one of them was killed when they were outnumbered, which was a great blow to the Yenshui sect's face. Now that they had killed one of them, the other one was also struggling at death's door. As long as they killed these two blood-clothing pavilion disciples, the Yenshui sect's face would not be disgraced. Watch out. At this moment, the other two experts in luxurious robes suddenly shouted. The Yenshui sect disciples heard it, but before they could react, the two sharp blades had already pierced through one of their hearts. Pfft! The person spat out a mouthful of blood, which contained the remnants of his heart. Then, he slowly fell to the ground with endless unwillingness. Behind him, Xiongming, who had clearly been submerged by the huge wave, was standing there. The fist blades on his arms had all sunk into the person's back. However, Xiongming could not help but gasp for breath. Obviously, he had used up a lot of his energy. Whether it was Yushu or Xiongming, they were in a state of exhaustion. However, the remaining three people did not continue to rush forward. This was because an emotion called fear had appeared in their hearts. Especially the baleful aura and killing intent emanating from Yushu and Meng Ming's bodies, it was terrifying. Two people who had just entered the gang spirit realm had not only survived the siege of 5 gang spirit realm experts, but also killed 2 Yenshui sect disciples with horrible methods. Was this the strength of the blood-clothing pavilion disciples? However, the Yenshui sect was also a top sect. Why was the strength gap between its disciples so huge? The last Yenshui sect disciple was a middle-aged man with a goat horn beard. He said in a trembling voice, "Huayan Marquis, Sikh Marquis, these two people are already at the end of their lives. Help me kill them, and the Yenshui sect will definitely reward you handsomely. It turned out that the two people were both dukes and marquis of the Thunder Flame dynasty. Well, Huayan Marquis and Sikh Marquis both hesitated. Seeing this, the goat-horned man panicked. He hurriedly said, "As long as you kill these two people of the blood clothing pavilion, we will give all our resources to you two dukes and marquis. And we will report to Martial Uncle that the Yenshui sect will owe you a favor." Huayan Marquis and Sikh Marquis looked at each other. They were both tempted. For them, resources were not the most important thing. As a top sect, the favor of the Yenshui sect was absolutely valuable. Especially when the imperial power was about to be handed over, if they had the support of a top sect, they could basically continue to enjoy a lifetime of glory and wealth. The two immediately showed their evil faces and walked towards Yushu and Xiongming with murderous intent. Motherf **, I didn't provoke anyone. How unlucky. But I did drag two of them down with me, so it's not a loss. Don't you think so? Yushu chuckled. Xiongming retreated to his side, crossing his arms and saying nothing. Seeing that the two people stopped running, the goat-horned man and his two companions thought that they had given up resistance. But unexpectedly, a person had quietly appeared. Chapter 661. Outside of Void Scar Sky, in the Imperial Palace, hundreds of people were sitting in a circle, staring at the jade tablets. These jade tablets were connected to the life tablets of the cultivators who entered Void Scar Sky. If someone died in Void Scar Sky, then his jade tablet outside would be destroyed. In the first few hours, there was no movement from the jade tablets, which was expected by everyone. Although the cultivators who entered had some grudges and had their own standpoints, the main task this time was to find the Heavenly Thunderfire bead. Before they found the exact location of the Heavenly Thunderfire bead, they would not fight to the death. However, a soft sound suddenly slapped them hard in the face. The sound was very soft, but in everyone's ears, it was no less than a clap of thunder on the ground. Everyone looked at the place where the life tablets were. One of them had broken into several pieces. A little eunuch hurriedly ran over and picked it up, then shouted, "Shui Yanping of the Evolving Water Sect, fallen." Buzz. Suddenly, there was a burst of noise from the crowd. Someone from the Evolving Water Sect is dead? This is a top sect, any disciple in the sect is extremely strong, how could they die like this? Could it be that the Evolving Water Sect has sided with some prince? No, as far as I know, the Evolving Water Sect has not been roped in by any prince, they do not want to get involved in the fight for the throne. That's strange. There was also someone who had a good relationship with the Evolving Water Sect who said, "Let's contact the leader of the Evolving Water Sect, and let him be mentally prepared." However, as soon as this person finished speaking, another jade tablet on the other side actually shattered. And the location was right next to the one just now. The little eunuch had not gone far, his footsteps paused, and he turned back. With a look of astonishment, he said, "Zhang Zhong of the Evolving Water Sect, fallen." The originally noisy voices quieted down instantly, many people were surprised, and even more were frowning. The Evolving Water Sect was a top sect, but two of their disciples had died in succession. What kind of danger did they encounter in Void Scar Sky? There were also some people who didn't get along with Yenshui's sect who snickered secretly. There were many disciples in Gang Spirit Realm in Yenshui's sect, but those who were sent to attend the birthday banquet were definitely the ones with the greatest potential. Two of them died at once, which was a great loss for Yenshui's sect. The crowd continued to discuss and speculate about what had happened to the people of the Evolving Water Sect. However, they were interrupted by three crisp sounds at the same time. Another person died. This time, the little eunuch simply did not leave, because one of the three broken jade tablets was still with him. Du Bang, Huayan Marquis, and Sikh Marquis from the Yenshui sect are dead. As soon as he said that, the crowd finally couldn't care less about the rules and exploded. The three disciples of the Evolving Water Sect had been completely annihilated, and even the two dukes of the Thunderflame dynasty had perished. The key point was that the three of them had died at the same time. Things couldn't be so coincidental, unless someone had killed them at the same time. However, the people who entered Void Scar Sky were all in Gang Spirit Realm. Who had the strength to kill 3 people? Some people also thought that many people had joined hands to kill them, and that Marquis Huayan and Marquis Seek had secretly taken refuge with some prince. Maybe they had encountered a deadly enemy. The strange thing was that the Evolving Water sect didn't take refuge with any prince, so why were they killed? Wasn't the one who killed them not afraid of the revenge of the Evolving Water sect? Not everyone could withstand the wrath of a top sect. Just when the crowd was thinking nonsense, in Void Scar Sky, Ling Shiqi skillfully picked up the mustard seed bracelets of the 5 dead people, and said lightly, "Long time no see." Tut, tut, tut. Yushu walked back and forth around Ling Shiqi, and his eyes were full of surprise. Brother Lang is indeed Brother Lang. His strength is still so abnormal, and he killed 3 Gang Spirit Realm cultivators without any hesitation. Only a few words popped out of his mouth, "You are getting stronger and stronger." Just now, the 2 of them had risked their lives to kill 2 of the 5 people. They seemed to be very strong, but they also consumed a lot of energy, so they really had the power to kill. But as soon as Ling Shiqi appeared, he waved his hand and the sword chi filled the sky, and then waved his hand to burn the world. In just a few breaths, the remaining goateed man, Marquis Huayan and Marquis Seek were all dead. Ling Shiqi's strength was far behind Yushu and Meng Shiqi. They had also tried their best to practice, and they had just broken through the Gang Spirit Realm after a lot of training, but they were still far behind Ling Shiqi. Ling Shiqi knew what they were thinking. He looked at the 2 of them and asked in a serious tone, "Both of you should have your own blood seed plan, right?" Yushu said bluntly, "Yes, the blood-clothed pavilion put me in the ultimate saber hall of the 8 Baron Weapons Doctrine, but I kept a low profile there, so I didn't come to the birthday party with them. I went to the Purgatory Devil sect." Meng Shiqi said briefly. This kind of thing was supposed to be strictly confidential, and even the people who were also involved in the blood seed plan could not easily say it. But the 2 of them said it without hesitation, which made Ling Shiqi more certain of his idea. He asked tentatively, "Then do you really want to complete the so-called blood seed plan for the blood-clothed pavilion?" Yushu and Meng Shiqi looked at each other. They were both very smart, and they immediately understood the meaning of Ling Shiqi's words. Humph. Yushu snorted, "The blood-clothed pavilion erased our memories and threw us into the Blood Fog Island to fend for ourselves. No matter how much compensation they give us later, I won't have any sense of belonging. In their eyes, we're just tools." Meng Shiqi did not say anything, but nodded in agreement. "Good." Ling Shiqi said in a deep voice, "Since we have the same idea, then I am here to invite you to join my organization. Currently, my organization only consists of Delta Origi and myself, as well as 2 masters from the 6 Western Kingdoms. This is not a sect, but an organization for everyone to take what they need." Yushu immediately laughed and said, "Ha ha ha, Brother Lang, you are finally willing to stand up. I will join without hesitation. The 4 of us fought our way out of the Blood Fog Island, so we have to make something out of it, not be a spy. By the way, have you given your organization a name? How about we call it the Blood-Clothed 4? Ling Shiqi's eyes twitched. He ignored Yushu and looked at Meng Shiqi. Meng Shiqi seemed to be hesitating. He said, "I have a condition." "Say it." "I want to be stronger." Both Ling Shiqi and Yushu could sense Meng Ming's strong thirst for power as soon as he said those words. Ling Shiqi thought that he still had a huge amount of resources, and he could use the system shop. It was not a big problem to help Meng Shiqi increase his strength, so he said, "Okay." Meng Shiqi also said, "Okay." Chapter 662. After receiving Hengming's reply, Ling Shiqi smiled knowingly. Yushu and Hengming were already on his list of Underworld members. The first condition for Underworld's next upgrade was to recruit 3 members, and he had already found 2 of them. As for the third, he planned to choose between Di Chuan and Wu Diao, but he still hadn't decided which one to choose. Following which, Ling Shiqi used the territory system to plant underworld imprints on Yushu and Hengming. He then said, "Our organization is called Underworld. I can take you to Underworld right now to have a look." Right now? Yushu was confused. But we're still in Void Scar Sky. How do we get there? Ling Shiqi reached out with his spiritual power and enveloped the two of them. Don't resist. Following which, the three of them suddenly disappeared from Void Scar Sky. In the next instant, the three of them arrived at Underworld. Upon entering Underworld, Yushu and Hengming were both stunned. Setting aside Underworld's terrain and appearance, the most prominent feeling in Underworld was the omnipresent ghostly aura and ghostly aura. The two of them also cultivated bloodthirsty energy and ghostly aura, so they had the most profound experience. What kind of secret realm is this? Not only is it extremely strange, but it can also open Underworld's secret realm in Void Scar Sky. This is simply unheard of. Yushu said in disbelief. Even the usually taciturn Hengming said in surprise, "The aura here is even denser and purer than the ghostly aura that Master Black Frost cultivates. If I cultivate here, I'll be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort." Hearing their words, Ling Shiqi thought to himself. Only now did he realize that Underworld's environment was indeed very suitable for demonic cultivators. Moreover, if Hengming and Ling Shiqi cultivated in Underworld while he moved around outside, wouldn't that mean that he could hide people in the dark? In particular, Underworld's uniqueness allowed it to open other secret realms at will. For example, for this trip to Void Scar Sky, if there were more members of Underworld, he could completely ignore the rules of the Thunderflame dynasty and bring in even more experts. Of course, this matter had to be kept a secret and could not be discovered by others. Another example was that in the future, he could go into battle alone and release a large group of experts at the crucial moment to catch them off guard. While Ling Shiqi was deep in thought, two huge clouds of black gas suddenly erupted from Fengdu City at the peak of the Underworld. Even the entire Underworld trembled slightly. Two streams of energy flowed like black rivers, flowing toward Yushu and Hengming. At the same time, an ancient voice reverberated throughout the Underworld. Conferred the title of King Qingguangyu. Conferred the title of King of Equality, Ming. Ling Shiqi's expression stiffened. He had seen such things before, and that was when Tu Deng was conferred the title of Xidagarba after entering the Underworld. This time, Yushu and Hengming were also conferred the titles of King Qingguang and King Pingdeng of the 10 Kings of Hell. This was definitely a great benefit for them. Unfortunately, Ling Shiqi did not know what the benefits were. It must be something like an inheritance. What made Ling Shiqi even more speechless was that why did he not receive any inheritance? He was clearly the emperor of Fengdu, the master of the underworld. Thinking of this, Ling Shiqi really wanted to cry. He could only console himself with the excuse that his status was too high, and the underworld's level was too low. At this time, he also realized that there were some differences between their inheritance and Tu Deng's. Tu Deng did not last long at that time, and he quickly regained consciousness. However, Yushu and Hengming both subconsciously sat cross-legged with their eyes closed. It seemed that they still needed some time. Ling Shiqi pondered for a moment. In any case, they already went through a fierce battle and did not have much spiritual power left. They can slowly accept the inheritance here. Then, he called Li Gui and Sound Gui to watch over them and report to him as soon as they woke up. He was really curious about what they would receive. After leaving the underworld, Ling Shiqi appeared in Air Scar Sky again, still at the place where he entered the underworld. As soon as he appeared, he opened his supercilious eyes. There was no one else within a radius of dozens of miles, so he was relieved. Then, he walked to the side of the divine tree that was emitting blue spiritual light. This was also the reason why the few of them met and fought. This is the water-drenched flower tree. Ling Shiqi barely recognized this item and was slightly shocked. This water-drenched flower tree was a rare treasure. Its trunk, branches, and leaves were all excellent materials for refining 7th-level water attribute spiritual weapons. Moreover, this tree would bear a water-drenched flower fruit every 100 years. Even if it was directly swallowed, it could greatly increase the cultivation of a spirit astral realm cultivator. If it was refined into a pill, the effect would be even better. However, Ling Shiqi only found a blue fruit the size of a fingernail on the tree. It was obviously not ripe yet. If he dug up this tree and did not cultivate it in time, it would not live for long. It would be a pity to just use it as a material for refining weapons. After all, Ling Shiqi was also very interested in the water-drenched flower fruit. No one could resist the increase in cultivation. Thus, he moved the water-drenched flower tree into the system space. Everything here was in a state of static time. He would think of a way to cultivate it after he got out. If he could really produce a water-drenched flower fruit in a short period of time, then his cultivation would improve greatly. In the end, he wiped away all traces of the battle and continued to search for treasures with the four-legged metal-swallowing beast. One after another, rare materials and treasures fell into his pocket. He was very satisfied, but the others were not like that. Void Scar Sky was so big, and there were so few people. It was too difficult to find a single bead. Thus, when the princes entered Air Scar Sky, they all used secret techniques to gather together as quickly as possible and then searched through every nook and cranny. When they started searching, they also came across many heavenly materials and earthly treasures. However, none of them fought for these treasures because these treasures couldn't even be compared to the throne of the emperor. Although these people did not care much about the heavenly treasures, it did not mean that they would get along peacefully. The conflicts and hatred between the princes and the sects were very deep. They also knew that before they found the heavenly Thunderfire Pearl, there was no need to fight to the death. However, they could not avoid a certain amount of conflict. In the outside world, the jade tablets began to shatter. Including the 5 that had died at the beginning, more than 20 people had died. These people were all the top disciples of the various sects, or the geniuses that had been nurtured by the Thunderfire dynasty. Every time one of them died, it would cause some people to feel heartache. 20 hours had passed since Space Scar Sky had opened, and Ling Shiqi's search for treasures was unexpectedly interrupted. This was because he had discovered a very strange place within Space Scar Sky. At this moment, he was standing under a black cloud. And within the black cloud, there was a ghost castle that was faintly discernible. Chapter 663. Ling Shiqi was not the only one who came here. Before him, there were already 3 groups of people here. Ling Shiqi looked over. One side was led by the 4th prince, Lei Haoran, and had a total of more than 20 people. The other side was led by the 9th prince, Lei Haoqing, and there were only a dozen people behind him. As for the 3rd side, rather than calling it a group of people, it was better to call it a group of people. There were spirit cultivators from all sides in this group. The discipline division, the Dark Thunder Guards, the military, the Marquis, and individual spirit cultivator sects were all present. They had the largest number of people, about 40 of them. However, these people did not gather together. Instead, they were scattered in 2s and 3s. Among this group of people, Ling Shiqi only recognized 2 or 3 people, and one of them was Delta Origi. Delta Origi was dressed in a red dress and stood proudly, like an incomparably gorgeous blood-colored rose with sharp thorns. From time to time, some gazes would fall on her, especially the white-faced scholar standing beside her, who was saying something with a face full of eagerness. Other than Delta Origi, there were also 2 spirit cultivators dressed in the Dark Thunder Guard's uniform. Ling Shiqi could only say that he had some impression of them. He had seen them a few times, but he could not remember their names. He could only vaguely remember that they seemed to be Manager Hai's subordinates. However, the 2 of them recognized Ling Shiqi. The older middle-aged man shouted, "Lord Lu, I am the eunuch Li Gang. This is Gong Lianghui." "Greetings, Lord." Ling Shiqi had already become the deputy director. Although eunuch Gao did not announce this matter in public, the appointment of the deputy director of the Dark Thunder Guard's headquarters could not be hidden. Basically, all the Dark Thunder Guards already knew about it. Not to mention whether or not others were dissatisfied or had some criticism in their hearts, in front of outsiders, they still had to give face. Leng Shiqi walked towards Li Gang and Gong Lianghui. Most of the others also looked at Leng Shiqi. Not many of them knew the Leng Shiqi, but Li Gang and Gong Lianghui were both supervisors. The only person who could be addressed as Lord by the supervisors was the deputy chief. Everyone felt it a little incredible that this unknown guy in the middle stage of Gang's spirit realm should be one of the 36 deputy directors of the Dark Thunder Guard. In other people's impression, not to mention the deputy supervisor, even most of the inner supervisor's cultivation base was at the unity of heaven and man realm. Only those with great potential and background could become the inner supervisor in Gang's spirit realm. But they had never heard of a deputy director in Gang's spirit realm. The fourth prince, Lei Haoran, turned and asked, "Who is this Lu Xingji?" The man in a long gown behind him replied, "Your Highness, this man is Manager Gao's disciple. He has great potential and strength. A year ago, he was the one who attacked the Thunder Destruction Alliance and the Sky Crane Gang in Shantai County. Some time ago, he also escorted the envoys of the Starfall Dynasty and the 6 countries of the western region to the imperial capital. During the period, there were no accidents, so he won the trust of Manager Gao. I just got the news that he has been promoted to the deputy chief. But he only has the title of deputy chief, and has no relative rights. Presumably, Manager Gao doesn't want him to be too conspicuous." Lei Haoran's eyes showed that he was thinking. He sneered softly and said, "So it was him. He helped Lei Haoga, that good-for-nothing, so that he could make a name for himself in Shantai County." Speaking of which, Lei Haoga was self-aware and didn't come to father's birthday banquet this time. Otherwise, with his little power, he would have been eliminated long ago. But since Lu Xingji can be the deputy chief, it means that he has some real skills. We can try to win him over. If he doesn't know how to appreciate our kindness, humph. Before Lei Haoga was driven out of the imperial capital, the two of them were not on good terms. Later on, Lei Haoga hid in Shantai County and had a hard time, which made Lei Haoran very happy. But Leng Shiqi's trip to Shantai County had made Lei Haoga's reputation soar. He had also made a good show in front of Lei Qingjun, and his power grew stronger and stronger. Therefore, Lei Haoran and Leng Shiqi were not happy with each other. As for Lei Haoqing, he would never have thought that the assassin who tried to assassinate him would walk past him right in front of his eyes. When Leng Shiqi passed by Delta Origi, he glanced at the pale-faced scholar and quietly transmitted his voice to Delta Origi, "Pursuer?" "Yes." Delta Origi's proud voice also transmitted its voice. "He is the disciple of the Discipline Commission's Grand Commander, Yun Xingsheng. He is already half a step into the realm of oneness of heaven and man. His future is limitless. There's nothing good about a pretty boy. But he's still better than some people with special hobbies." Leng Shiqi. Fine, he couldn't explain what happened between him and Hua Luyue. He walked over to Li Gang and Gong Lianghui. The three of them exchanged pleasantries for a while. Leng Shiqi then asked, "You two, do you know what is in the sky?" "The two princes are not looking for the heavenly Thunderfire Pearl but are staying here." "Could it be that the heavenly Thunderfire Pearl is here?" Li Gang said flatteringly, "Lord Lu, you may not know, but the castle in the clouds here is the ruins of the Cloudhouse Demon Palace, one of the 6 demonic realms from 1,000 years ago. When the Thunderfire dynasty was first established, the Cloudhouse Demon Palace did not know what was good for them and stood against the dynasty. In the end, it was destroyed. The ruins of the Cloudhouse Demon Palace were placed in Void Scar Sky for future generations to slowly explore. Now, no one knows where the heavenly Thunderfire Pearl is. The Cloudhouse Demon Palace could be said to be one of the most precious places in Void Scar Sky. The heavenly Thunderfire Pearl might be placed here. Unfortunately, the Cloudhouse Demon Palace is not a place that anyone can easily enter. Lord Lu, you can see that the black fog around the castle is irregular. Only when the black fog is at its weakest can you force your way in. Of course, if you have the key, you can enter at any time." "Key?" Leng Shiqi asked in confusion. "That's right. Although it's called a key, it's actually the token of a high-grade disciple of the Cloud House Demon Palace. More accurately, it's a key as long as it's made of the same material. After all, the Cloud House Demon Palace has been destroyed for more than 1,000 years. Those tokens have long been lost. Some of them have been taken away and refined into other things. I heard that the 13th prince obtained a key not long ago. Ling Shiqi nodded. No wonder Lei Haoran and Lei Haoqing were here. It was possible that the heavenly Thunderfire Pearl was in the Cloud House Demon Palace. However, the latter half of Li Gang's words reminded him of something. Not long after he arrived in the imperial capital, he had participated in an auction held by the Heavenly Treasures Pavilion. It was at that auction that he obtained the wondrous fish and water pleasure technique and met his senior sister Sulwan. He remembered that the last item of that auction was a 6th-level spiritual weapon, the life-reaping demon spear. At that time, everyone was puzzled as to why the 13th prince, Lei Haoyun, would spend so many spiritual stones to buy a 6th-level spiritual weapon. It turned out that the life-reaping demon spear was the key to entering the Cloud House Demon Palace. It seemed that Lei Haoyun had been prepared since then. As the saying goes, people can't be nagged. At this moment, Lei Haoyun walked over with more than 20 gang spirit realm experts. 4th brother, 9th brother, what a coincidence. Chapter 664. Lei Haoyun's arrival made the situation even more tense. Originally, there were only 2 competitors, and Lei Haoqing was weaker than Lei Haoran, so he wasn't too worried. However, Lei Haoyun was also here, and his numbers were only slightly less than Lei Haoran's. He was already a great threat to Lei Haoran. Also, just as Li Gang had said, Lei Haoyun had the key to enter the demonic Cloud Palace. He didn't need to wait at all, and could directly open the entrance and bring people in. In this way, Lei Haoyun had a huge advantage. If the heavenly Thunderfire Pearl was really inside, then it would be very bad. I have to stop Lei Haoyun. Lei Haoran said resolutely. Lei Haoqing had the same idea. The reason why he had been so calm was because he knew that his power couldn't compare to Lei Haoran's, but it didn't mean that he didn't have the ability to fight. There was a prerequisite, and that was that everyone had to enter the demonic Cloud Palace together. Lei Haoyun's appearance was equivalent to breaking this balance. Who asked him to have the key? Lei Haoqing immediately looked at Lei Haoran, and they quickly made a decision through their eyes. The 2 of them took a step forward at the same time, faintly blocking Lei Haoyun's path. Royal brothers, what is the meaning of this? Lei Haoyun said with a smile. Cut the crap. Lei Haoqing didn't give him any face. You are indeed powerful, to secretly find out that the life-stealing demon spear is the key to enter the demonic Cloud Palace. Presumably, you already knew that Royal Father would open the Void Scar Sky. Royal Father is indeed too biased towards you. However, don't think that you can easily enter the demonic Cloud Palace today. Lei Haoran said leisurely, 13th brother, you have always been concealing your strength, and you should know best that we still haven't found the heavenly Thunderfire Pearl, so there is no need for us to die. 9th brother and I together have twice as many people as you. Listen to 4th brother's advice and retreat. Lei Haoyun shook his head, as if he didn't care about the threat in Lei Haoran's words. The possibility that the heavenly Thunderfire Pearl is in the demonic Cloud Palace is not low. I cannot give up. Even if you 2 royal brothers are here, you can't change my decision. Then you want to refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit? Lei Haoqing snorted coldly. Lei Haoyun clasped his hands behind his back. He did not put Lei Haoqing in his eyes at all. Then let's try. You. Lei Haoqing was instantly enraged, but he didn't act rashly. He always felt that Lei Haoyun was so arrogant because he was prepared. Lei Haoyun clearly knew that his strength was no match for the combined strength of the 2 of them, yet he was still so domineering. Could it be that he really had some sort of trump card? As a result, the scene was in a stalemate. The spirit cultivators of the 3 sides slowly stepped forward, and the battle of only 100 gang spirit realm masters could break out at any time. However, no one made the first move. They were all unusually cautious. Meanwhile, Ling Shiqi was secretly laughing. He transmitted his voice to the Delta Origi. Why don't you guess why Lei Haoyun is so confident? Delta Origi pondered. Could it be that one of us is one of his men? No. Ling Shiqi shook his head. Actually, Lei Haoyun isn't even here. What did you say? Delta Origi did not seem to believe Ling Shiqi. Lei Haoyun was clearly standing in front of everyone. His aura, voice, and appearance were all undoubtedly Lei Haoyun. How could he not be here? Ling Shiqi said, there will be a good show later. Let's wait and see. Time passed little by little. Just as everyone was confronting each other, on the other side, a man secretly ran to the bottom of the Cloud Tower Demon Palace. He held a dark magic spear in his hand. As the tip of the spear was raised, a strange rhythm spread out and connected with the black fog around the Cloud Tower Demon Palace. In a few breaths, the man manipulated the black fog to form a small entrance. The black fog stirred and attracted everyone's attention at once. When Lei Haoran and Lei Haoqing saw the man holding the magic spear, they were extremely surprised. Because that man was the 13th prince, Lei Haoyun. How could it be? Then who is this man? The two turned their heads and saw that Lei Haoyun and more than 20 gang spirit realm cultivators, who had just been arguing with them, had disappeared like bubbles in the water. It turned out that these figures were all fake. They were all fooled. Even though they didn't know what secret treasure or secret method Lei Haoyun used, this trick was really clever. The Cloud Tower Demon Palace was not big or small, and it was more than 10 miles in radius. It was impossible for them to stop Lei Haoyun from their current position. But it was hard for them to accept that Lei Haoyun led people into the Cloud Tower Demon Palace first. Your Highness, look, the black fog has become much thinner. The man next to Lei Haoran suddenly shouted. Lei Haoran quickly looked up and found that because Lei Haoyun had condensed a portal, the black fog in other places had become thinner, which meant that they could forcibly break through the black fog and enter the Cloud Tower Demon Palace. Ha ha ha, Lei Haoyun, you didn't expect that in the end, it was all for us. Lei Haoran changed his usual feminine image and laughed wildly. Lei Haoqing, let's work together to break through the black fog and enter the Cloud Tower Demon Palace together. No matter whether the Heavenly Thunderfire Pearl is inside or not, who will get it, it will depend on our own ability. Lei Haoqing did not hesitate. He knew very well that even if the black fog was thinner, it was difficult for him to break through the black fog with his own strength. It was indeed a good choice to continue to work with Lei Haoran. Well, let's go in together. Then, only 50 gang spirit realm experts from both sides gathered together, ready to use their strongest strength to forcibly break through the black fog. As for the remaining scattered spirit cultivators, they had the same idea. Most of them were neutral people. After all, whether it was the Discipline Commission or the Dark Thunder Guards, they must maintain absolute neutrality, at least on the surface. Although they didn't care much about whether the Heavenly Thunderfire Pearl was here or not, the treasures in the Cloud Tower Demon Palace made them very interested and wanted to go in and explore. In fact, Ling Shiqi had quietly opened the supercilious eyes and seen through Lei Haoyun's trick, but he didn't say anything. Anyway, it had nothing to do with him. Just when Lei Haoyun secretly stirred the black fog with the life-stealing demon refining spear to open the door, a spiritual weapon in Ling Shiqi's storage bracelet suddenly trembled a few times. Ling Shiqi took it out with some doubts. It was the inky jade sword that he hadn't used for a long time. Since he got the Blood Shadow sword from Di Chuan, he hadn't used the inky jade sword for some time because the Blood Shadow sword was more suitable for him. When the inky jade sword appeared, Ling Shiqi felt that the sword had something to do with the black fog in the sky. He held the inky jade sword and had the ability to control the black fog. He didn't show it on the surface, but he was shocked in his heart. The inky jade sword is also a key. Chapter 665. Ling Shiqi himself was also very strange. His inky jade sword could be said to be a product of the system. He remembered that when he came out of the Phantom Spirit's secret realm, he fused the recasting card with other materials to get the inky jade sword in order not to expose his identity. Later, he used the advanced spear talisman to upgrade the inky jade sword to a level 6 spiritual weapon. It was reasonable to say that it had nothing to do with the Cloud Tower Demon Palace. No. Leng Shiqi suddenly remembered something that happened a long time ago. When he was still in the spirit transformation realm, in order to break through the spiritual pulse realm as soon as possible, he took the risk to go to the demonic miasma mountain range. He bought an unknown black iron egg from a stall in the demon-suppressing town. At that time, from the price of the system, it was very valuable, so he cheated and got it. But later, he had been constantly on the move and had no time to study it, so he simply smelted it as a material when he recast the inky jade sword. He couldn't help thinking in surprise, is that black thing the material of the Cloud Tower Demon Palace to refine the token? Or is it the remnant left after the token was destroyed? He would never have thought that the small bargain he had coveted was the key to enter the Cloud Tower Demon Palace. Leng Shiqi watched the dozens of Gang Spirit Realm Masters form a formation and attack the black fog with all their strength. In an instant, the terrible spiritual power fluctuations shook the world and the mountains shook. The rest of the spirit cultivators were also in the Gang Spirit Realm, but they still kept retreating. Leng Shiqi looked up. Under the joint efforts of so many masters, the black fog of the Cloud Tower Demon Palace was torn open. But the opening was also slowly closing. Lei Haoran immediately shouted, "It's no time to lose. Go in." Dozens of Gang Spirit Realm Masters jumped into the black fog like a swarm of bees. It could be imagined that the war between the three princes had completely begun. He just didn't know whether the heavenly thunderfire bead was here or not. The rest of the people had little to do with the crown prince. Maybe some of them had turned to the first prince Lei Haoyan or other princes, but it was better not to show up. These people were fine now, but they were a little unwilling to leave just like that. Actually, those who were able to enter the Void Scar Sky were more or less prepared. The Void Scar Sky had been opened a few times in the history of the Thunderblaze dynasty. Naturally, there would be some information about it. However, there was almost no information about the Cloud Tower Demon Palace. From this, it could be seen that there were very few people who had entered the Cloud Tower Demon Palace. This also meant that the Cloud Tower Demon Palace was in a state that had not been explored much, and there was a high chance that there were rare treasures. Especially for spirit cultivator who cultivated devil arts, the attraction of the Cloud Tower Demon Palace was not ordinary. First, it was the 13th prince, Lei Haoyun, who used the key to enter. Then, it was the 4th prince, Lei Haoran, and the 9th prince, Lei Haoqing, who worked together to force their way in. In fact, with everyone's strength, if they worked together, they would have a chance to break in. However, they all came from completely different forces, or even hostile forces. Therefore, it was impossible for them to join forces. Thus, everyone had no choice but to slowly disperse. In any case, there was no point in staying here. If they continued to wait for the black fog to thin out, who knew how long they would have to wait? At that time, even if they entered, the things inside would have already been plundered. The gains would not make up for the losses. Li Gang asked Leng Shiqi. "Master Lu, let's leave as well. I still have some things to do. Let's part ways here." Leng Shiqi could tell that Li Gang wanted to go together, but he had his own plans and did not want to cause any trouble. Li Gang's expression froze, and said, "Master, are you not coming with us? There are a total of 10 people from the Dark Thunder Guards, and it is not easy for the 3 of us to meet. Furthermore, there are some dangers in the Void Scar Sky. Whether it is fighting for resources or avoiding danger, it is the best choice for us to gather together." Leng Shiqi continued to shake his head. "Even so, I am used to being alone. I am not used to traveling with others." Li Gang seemed to want to say something, but Gong Lianghui, who was beside him, said, "Since Master Lu has made up his mind, we will not waste any more time. Farewell." Leng Shiqi did not say anything. He secretly sent a message to the Delta Origi, and then went in a certain direction. Li Gang and Gong Lianghui walked in the same direction as Leng Shiqi. After a while, when there was no one around, Li Gang turned around and asked, Gong Lianghui, why did you let Lu Xingji go? It was not easy to meet him. I heard that he has a high-level movement technique. Where are we going to find him now? If we ruin Manager Li's plans, you and I will not be able to bear the consequences. Gong Lianghui smiled sinisterly and said, Brother Li, there is no need to worry. I have secretly left an imprint on Lu Xingji's body, and I can sense his location. Brother Li, it is not that I want to boost the morale of others, but do you think the two of us can stop Lu Xingji? Li Gang was speechless. If Lu Xingji is so easy to kill, why would Manager Li gather so many people to kill him? If we follow him shamelessly, we will arouse his suspicions. The most important thing now is to gather people and kill him in one fell swoop. Gong Lianghui said fiercely. Yes, brother Gong Lianghui is more thoughtful. Leng Shiqi, on the other hand, had been staring at the two of them from dozens of miles away. In fact, when they separated, he had noticed that Gong Lianghui had quietly left an undetectable light spot on his body. At that time, he knew that there was something wrong with the two of them. He also guessed that the person who wanted to kill him was none other than Li Jucheng. However, he did not remove the light spot. Instead, he wanted to use this opportunity to make Li Jucheng suffer great losses. However, before that, he had another important thing to do. Thinking of this, he dived into the ground and quickly returned to the Yunlu Demon Palace. He would not give up this good opportunity to explore the Yunlu Demon Palace. Leng Shiqi drilled out of the ground. There was no one around, but his eyes locked onto a direction and he said, Come out. There was a flash of blood-red light, and a blood-red figure appeared. It was Delta Origi. Before Leng Shiqi left, he sent a message to Delta Origi, telling her to hide nearby and prepare to bring her into the Yunlu Demon Palace. Delta Origi did not know how Leng Shiqi could enter, but she did not ask and stayed. Leng Shiqi did not say anything. He unsheathed his inky jade sword and instantly communicated with the black fog in the sky. In the blink of an eye, the weapons revolved around each other and opened an entrance the size of a person. Then, he spread out his four colorful wings and flew directly into the Yunlu Demon Palace with Delta Origi. Chapter 666. After entering the Cloud Tower Demon Palace, Leng Shiqi could see nothing but black mist and thick demonic energy. This kind of environment was very suitable for Leng Shiqi, as it was somewhat similar to the underworld. Such pure demonic energy, said Delta Origi. Leng Shiqi noticed that they were in a small courtyard. There were obvious traces of destruction around them, and they were all new. It seems like this place has been ransacked. Let's go look elsewhere. The two approached the courtyard door. Just as they were about to leave, Leng Shiqi's footsteps suddenly stopped. What's wrong? Did you find something? Asked Delta Origi curiously. Leng Shiqi did not answer directly. Instead, his expression became a little strange, because the black mark on the spirit crystal in his body suddenly trembled slightly. He looked around and did not find anything special. There were only some black grasses around his feet. They looked a little withered and lifeless. Leng Shiqi picked up one of the grasses. The black mark in his body absorbed a wisp of energy from the grasses as if it was breathing. Just this little bit of energy was enough to increase Leng Shiqi's spiritual energy to a visible level. He roughly calculated that this grasses was equivalent to 2 or 3 days of hard work. This did not sound like a lot, but there was a large patch of grasses around his feet. That's strange, muttered Leng Shiqi in surprise and joy. After entering Void Scar, he had obtained some demonic materials, such as the Weeping Soul Demon Bamboo he obtained from killing the Green Giant Python for the first time. However, no matter what kind of treasures he obtained before, the black mark did not react. Now, this inconspicuous grasses were reacting? 3 months ago, after Leng Shiqi stole the body of the Tuoba ancestor from the Tuoba kingdom, he had also triggered the black mark, causing his cultivation to skyrocket. At that time, he guessed that the black mark might have the magical ability to absorb demonic energy. Unfortunately, the black mark did not do anything after that. From this point it was clear that these grasses were not ordinary. Moreover, it was clear that this place had already been searched, but no one had pulled out the grass. It seemed that the previous people had also made a mistake. That's a good deal for me. Leng Shiqi secretly rejoiced. He collected all the grass and counted them carefully. There were about 200 to 300 of them. He estimated that if he absorbed all the magic in it, it would be enough for him to break through to the 6th level of Gang Spirit Realm, or even more. Even if he had to leave Void Scar Sky right now, he would still be satisfied. Leng Shiqi said to Delta Origi, "These grasses are of some use to me, but they don't seem to have any other value." Delta Origi rolled her eyes at him. "What? Are you afraid that I'll steal your grass?" Leng Shiqi knew that he could not win against Delta Origi, so he simply used his supercilious eyes to investigate. Unfortunately, the Yunlu Demon Palace was full of formations, and the range of his supercilious eyes was limited. He could only vaguely see the general direction of some spiritual aura. This situation was within his expectations. He identified the direction and said, "Let's go to the left. It's best not to run into those princes." Now Lei Haoran and the other 2 princes must be searching for the heavenly Thunderfire Pearl with all their strength. Originally, there were only 3 of them, but now we are the 4th party. If we are discovered, it will be a big problem. Delta Origi agreed. "Let's go." Then the 2 walked out of the courtyard and came to a long corridor. There was a door at every distance. This seemed to be the place where the disciples of the Yunlu Demon Palace lived. They did not miss any place and went into each courtyard one after another. However, the people who came in before had already been searched. They could even see traces of those people in a hurry. To Leng Shiqi's joy, there were more or less some black grass in each courtyard. But what made him hate was that the people before had unintentionally destroyed some of them. To Leng Shiqi, these small grasses were all cultivation bases. In about a quarter of an hour, the 2 of them quickly looked through all the courtyards. Other than Leng Shiqi's grass, which was more than 1,000, they didn't find anything else. They had no choice but to walk out of the long corridor. Suddenly, the space in front of them opened up. There were 6 wide paths scattered in several directions. Leng Shiqi pointed at a path and said, "No one has walked this path before. Let's go take a look." Delta Origi naturally had no objection. But before they walked far, a demon's shadow suddenly appeared and pounced on Leng Shiqi. The aura was very strong, comparable to the late stage of Gang Spirit Realm. Leng Shiqi snorted and pinched the Buddha's seal. Suddenly, the Buddha's light shone brightly, and purifying lotuses appeared as if they could purify all the evil in the world. Before the demon's shadow could get close to Leng Shiqi, most of its demonic chi evaporated in an instant. It also let out a painful howl. Leng Shiqi turned around and saw a half-human, half-beast monster with demonic chi all over its body charging over without any regard for its own safety. "You're courting death." Leng Shiqi changed his seal. The Buddha's lotus flowed layer by layer, and a faint golden flame rose above the lotus. As soon as the flame appeared, the demon screamed in horror. Whether it was the Buddha's light or the golden dragon flame, they were both heaven-suppressing demonic arts. Under the combination of the 2, even if Leng Shiqi did not use any real spiritual techniques, the demon was on the verge of death in the blink of an eye. Leng Shiqi gently waved his hand, and a Buddhist lotus tainted with pure gold earth dragon flames descended, directly melting the demonic creature. Those who entered Void Scar Sky were all spirit cultivators of Gang Spirit Realm, but there were not many of them in the late stage of Gang Spirit Realm. And this level of demon was definitely comparable to the late stage of Gang Spirit Realm in terms of combat power. If other spirit cultivators encountered it, they would be in danger of losing their lives. But in front of Leng Shiqi, the demon was obliterated before it could get close. Delta Origi also cultivated demonic arts. She frowned and retreated the moment Leng Shiqi attacked. When she saw that Leng Shiqi killed the demon so easily, she could not help but show a touch of surprise. She knew that Leng Shiqi was very strong. Perhaps he had the strength of the late stage of Gang Spirit Realm, but the strength that Leng Shiqi showed was still a little beyond her expectations. Leng Shiqi also frowned slightly at this time, because he did not absorb the demon's soul after it died, which meant that the demon did not have a soul. Everything in the world, whether it was human, demon, or demon, was actually a living thing. How could it not have a soul? Leng Shiqi noticed that there seemed to be a wisp of black gas in the place where the demon disappeared. He quickly put away the Buddha's light and golden dragon flame and walked forward. He found that there was indeed a wisp of black gas as thin as hair swaying with the wind, as if it would completely dissipate at any time. Leng Shiqi's expression became dignified. The fact that this thing could still exist in front of the Buddha's light and golden dragon flame showed that it was unusual. He reached out and touched the black gas. In an instant, the black gas was also absorbed by the black mark on the spirit crystal, and Leng Shiqi's cultivation also increased significantly. Chapter 667. Leng Shiqi sensed it carefully. This wisp of black gas was comparable to the spiritual power he gained from a month's worth of cultivation. This demonic creature might be troublesome or a disaster to others, but to Leng Shiqi, it was clearly a mobile cultivation base. Leng Shiqi no longer had any thoughts of treasure hunting. He only wanted to look for demonic creatures to improve his cultivation base. However, this demonic creature was also very strange. Leng Shiqi had always had his Byakugan open, but when the monster appeared, his Byakugan did not detect it. In addition, the demonic creature did not have a soul after it died. This meant that it was not a living creature. Of course, ordinary people would not want to encounter such a demonic creature. On the other hand, it was not easy to actively find a demonic creature. Delta Origi walked over and looked at Leng Shiqi's happy expression. She asked, "What did you find?" "There is something in my body that can absorb the black gas and convert it into my cultivation base." Leng Shiqi did not hide it. Delta Origi tilted her head slightly. "You have a lot of strange things in your body. It seems that you came to the right place to enter the Cloud Demon Palace." At this moment, Leng Shiqi also remembered that other than the black mark and star mark on the spirit crystal, there was also a golden dragon pattern. This had always been a question in his mind. He asked, "By the way, you also condensed spirit crystals in the Thunder Flame Dynasty's dragon vein. Is there anything special about your spirit crystal?" At the mention of this, Delta Origi's expression turned serious. "There is a golden dragon pattern." "As expected," Leng Shiqi said in a deep voice. "If I'm not wrong, anyone who enters the dragon vein to condense spirit crystals will have such a mark. I just don't know if it's a blessing or a curse." I also asked Lei Mayan about this. She said that this is caused by the special environment of the dragon vein. It is said that it can absorb a certain amount of providence. However, providence is illusory and impossible to verify. As long as it doesn't affect cultivation, it's fine. Delta Origi explained. However, Leng Shiqi felt that the dragon pattern was not that simple. There might be more to it. Rumble. Just as they were talking, a series of loud noises came from the distance, followed by a powerful explosion of spiritual light. Many of the buildings in the Cloud Demon Palace began to collapse. Both of them frowned. Delta Origi said, "The battle is so intense. Is the Heavenly Thunderfire Pearl really here?" "Not necessarily." Leng Shiqi looked at the source of the sound with his pale eyes. Because a large number of buildings were damaged, even a part of the formation had disappeared. His white eyes could see the situation there. Over there, 4th Prince Lei Haoran's men are fighting. However, they are not fighting with the spirit cultivator, but with the demon we just encountered. In fact, in his vision, Lei Haoran and the others were fighting with the air. Thinking that his Byakugan could not detect demons, he said this. Moreover, judging from the intensity of the battle, they had either encountered a large number of demons or an extremely powerful individual demon. No matter which one it was very attractive to Leng Shiqi. However, he did not want to expose himself in front of Lei Haoran. Furthermore, Delta Origi had also entered. He could not just give him some black gas to take the risk. Thus, he said, "Don't worry about them. Let's continue forward." The two of them walked down the road and soon arrived in front of a small palace. During this time, they were also ambushed by demons. In the end, of course, they became nourishment for Leng Shiqi's cultivation. He also tested it on Delta Orgi, but the black gas did not have any effect on her. This made Leng Shiqi even more certain that the black mark was extremely mysterious. The palace door was tightly shut. The bronze door was engraved with a seemingly chaotic but actually somewhat rhythmic cloud pattern. Leng Shiqi flicked his finger, and a starlight shot out from his finger. It shot towards the door, but it was like a clay ox entering the sea. It's a little strange. This bronze door should have a restriction. Let me try. Delta Orgi said. Leng Shiqi turned his head and said, "You also learned formations?" "You can say that." Delta Orgi smiled mysteriously. Then, she directly forced out a few drops of essence blood. The blood continued to expand and formed a bloody light. The bloody light contracted again, and in the blink of an eye, a blurry blood-red figure appeared. Under Delta Orgi's control, the figure walked to the bronze door and struck out a series of seals. Streaks of blood climbed up the door and began to slowly devour the cloud pattern on the door. Seeing all of this, Leng Shiqi was very surprised. Delta Orgi clearly did not cultivate formations, but she used a secret technique to summon a figure who could make formations to help her break the formation. It was very mysterious. In fact, people like Leng Shiqi, Delta Orgi, and even Yushu and Hengming spent all of their time on cultivation. As for formations, alchemy, artifact forging, and so on, they were not completely ignorant, but they were not far behind. Their method of cultivation would make their combat power very strong, but it also had some drawbacks. For example, the restriction on the door was not very advanced. If they used force to break the formation, it was possible. However, this would not only expose their location, but it would also consume a lot of spiritual energy. If they knew some formations, it would be much easier. Delta Orgi seemed to have found a special method. Leng Shiqi could not help but ask, "What kind of secret technique is this?" As Delta Orgi controlled the blood-red figure, she explained with a smug expression, "Do you remember that I told you that I created a secret technique?" With that said, Leng Shiqi remembered that when he invited Delta Orgi to join the underworld, Delta Orgi asked him for some blood essence, saying that she was researching a secret technique. "This is the secret technique you created." "That's right." Delta Orgi nodded. "Currently, I call it the blood shadow secret technique. I can use the blood essence of a spirit cultivator and some materials to create an existence similar to a clone. This clone can have a part of the original spirit cultivator's abilities. For example, if it is an array master, the blood shadow I condense has the ability to set up and break arrays. However, there are too many factors that affect the strength of the ability. This blood shadow in front of me is the most successful one I have made in a long time. Perhaps it can break the restriction on the door." After hearing these words, Leng Shiqi could not help but admire Delta Orgi. This mysterious secret technique was only in its embryonic form, but it was already very powerful. Furthermore, he could see that the potential of the blood shadow secret technique was quite great. It could be imagined that if Delta Orgi studied this secret technique to the extreme, she could create a large number of experts. This included experts with all kinds of special abilities. Even Leng Shiqi began to covet this blood shadow secret technique. However, he suddenly remembered that Delta Orgi also took some blood essence from him. What kind of blood shadow would his blood essence condense? He also asked this question curiously, but Delta Orgi shook her head gently. "This has to be kept a secret." Chapter 668. Leng Shiqi face-bombed. Delta Orgi was still keeping him in suspense. Crack. However, a slight sound attracted their attention. Leng Shiqi looked over and saw that the cloud diagram on the bronze door had a crack. Crack, crack, more and more cracks appeared, and soon, they covered the bronze door. At the same time, the blood shadow suddenly dimmed and finally disappeared. Delta Orgi sighed softly and said, "This is the limit." Looking at these cracks, the restriction on the door should have been mostly broken. Ling Shiqi's body trembled, and his body instantly turned pure gold. Suddenly, a powerful Vajra force burst out. Before he moved, the ground under his feet began to crack. Vajra force. Ling Shiqi punched out, and the Vajra force rushed out. At the same time, a dazzling light burst out from his fist. Great bright fist. Boom! With a loud bang, Ling Shiqi used the terrifying power of the Vajra force and the great bright fist to smash the bronze door. However, the scene inside made Ling Shiqi and Delta Orgi stunned. This palace did not look big, and they did not expect to find anything too precious in it at first. However, what they saw at this moment could only be described with one word, and that was empty. Looking around, the palace was only a few hundred feet in size. There were no decorations or items inside, only a deep pool on the ground. Other than that, there was nothing else. Both of them were a little disappointed. After going through so much trouble, they ended up with nothing. This was a little hard for them to accept. However, it was still necessary to explore. Since this place was protected by a formation, it should be an important place. There might be something hidden, or something like a secret room. Ling Shiqi walked around the palace with Byakugan. There was nothing here at all, let alone a secret room. He turned around and found Delta Orgi standing in the pool. He was a little lost. Delta Orgi would definitely not show such a state for no reason. He also walked to the edge of the pool and looked down. The pool was about 10 feet deep, and there was a thick layer of dark red substance inside. There was a faint smell of blood. This is all dried up blood. There seems to be something in it. Delta Orgi muttered. Immediately, she formed a seal with her hands and scattered light into the pool. The dried up blood seemed to come to life and twisted slightly. With a pu sound, a fist-sized lump of blood flew out from it. Delta Orgi's face suddenly showed a look of surprise. This is a blood essence soul. Only a sky origin stage cultivator can condense the essence blood and soul. Quickly take this item, we didn't come here for nothing. Ling Shiqi consciously gave up the blood essence soul. He believed that after Delta Orgi had this item, the blood shadow secret technique would reach a higher level. At first, things went smoothly, but they all thought that this thing was condensed from blood. However, after Delta Orgi collected a part of it, they realized that the blood was only a part of the surface. The disappearance of the blood also revealed the original shape of the thing inside. It was a pebble-sized bead. The bead was purple and red in color. There were no patterns on the surface, but there seemed to be endless thunder and flames inside. Just a trace of its aura made Ling Shiqi and Delta Orgi tremble in fear. Seeing this bead, he explained to Delta Orgi and his pupils shrank. From the shape and aura of the bead, it seemed to be the heavenly thunderfire bead that those princes were fighting for with their lives. According to the information obtained by Ling Shiqi, the heavenly thunderfire bead was the most precious treasure of the Thunderfire dynasty. In terms of grade, it was an existence that surpassed a rank 9 heavenly soldier. Not only did it contain the power of thunder and fire that could destroy heaven and earth, it was also rumored that it contained an ancient secret technique. Back then, the ancestor of the Thunderfire dynasty was able to soar to the heavens because he comprehended the inheritance. More than 1,000 years ago, the Thunderfire dynasty actually had many dynasties existing side by side. Since then, the Thunderfire dynasty had been secretly cultivating experts, suddenly erupting and destroying the surrounding dynasties in one fell swoop, thus establishing the current Thunderfire dynasty. Therefore, it was reasonable for Lei Qingjun to use the heavenly Thunderfire bead as a condition for establishing the crown prince. Ling Shiqi looked at the heavenly Thunderfire bead floating in the air and didn't know what to say. From the beginning, he didn't plan to have any interaction with the princes, let alone look for the heavenly Thunderfire bead. However, things were so strange. Some people couldn't find it even after turning the entire sky upside down, but he accidentally found it. fate was indeed very interesting. This should be the heavenly thunderfire bead, right? Delta Orgi said in disbelief. Then, should we take it or not? Leng Shiqi also pondered for a moment. Since the heavenly thunderfire bead had appeared, it was only a matter of time before it was discovered. If he secretly sided with one of the princes, it would be fine. However, as a dark lightning guard, he could only remain neutral. In that case, the heavenly thunderfire bead wouldn't be very useful in his hands. Anyway, he couldn't take the heavenly thunderfire bead for himself. It wouldn't be bad if he used it to exchange for some benefits with one of the princes. However, at that moment, Leng Shiqi's mind flashed. He looked at the heavenly thunderfire bead and thought to himself, there might be a way to keep the heavenly thunderfire bead for himself. A treasure like the heavenly thunderfire bead was definitely not something that ordinary people could come into contact with. Lei Qingjun should have placed some restrictions on the heavenly thunderfire bead, so it was impossible to keep it for himself. However, Leng Shiqi had the system with him. He quickly opened the system shop, trying to find something to collect the heavenly thunderfire bead. Unfortunately, he couldn't find anything. Refresh, nothing. Refresh again, still nothing. Refresh again, still nothing. Leng Shiqi couldn't help but feel a little pity. He had such a treasure in his hands, but he couldn't get any benefits, which made him feel unreconciled. Just as he was about to put the heavenly thunderfire bead into the system space, his hands suddenly paused, because he accidentally found something in the system space. It was a prize he had drawn a long time ago when he was in the Western Wilderness Prefecture, the Faceless Shambler card. The function of this card was that it could be perfectly copied into something else. He quickly took out the card, and with a turn of his spiritual power, the card turned into a gray ball of light, and condensed into a bead at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was actually exactly the same as the heavenly thunderfire bead. Leng Shiqi held the replicated bead in his hand. Whether it was the shape, color, or the spiritual power inside, it was exactly the same. He was extremely happy. This heavenly thunderfire bead was definitely a treasure that surpassed the 9th stage. If he could get one for free, he would definitely make a fortune. However, when the two heavenly thunderfire pearls came close to each other, they actually produced an extremely strong repulsive force, causing the two heavenly thunderfire pearls to erupt at the same time, instantly turning the small palace into ashes. Chapter 669. Fortunately, Leng Shiqi and Delta Orgi were very good at protecting themselves. They weren't injured, but they looked a little embarrassed. Leng Shiqi was surprised, but he also felt that something was wrong. Such a loud noise would definitely attract other people. He quickly shouted, "I'll send you to the underworld. Don't resist." Then, he reached out with his psychic power, and Delta Orgi's figure disappeared without a trace. With his invincible Vajra divine art, he was not afraid of the destructive thunder fire. He reached out and grabbed the two heavenly thunderfire pearls. However, the berserk power still caused cracks to appear on his golden palm. He put away the heavenly thunderfire pearls and was about to leave when a shout came from afar. "Who are you? Hand over the heavenly thunderfire pearls." Leng Shiqi knew that something was wrong. He was planning to hide in the underworld for a while. At most, he could wait for 2 days and then leave Scar Sky. Unfortunately, he was still a step too late. However, following that person's shout, a few other people had already noticed him and recognized him. "He's Lu Xingji, stop him." Lei Haoran also noticed Leng Shiqi. His eyes flashed with madness and greed as he shouted, "Lu Xingji, hand over the heavenly thunderfire pearls. I'll guarantee you a high position, second only to one person." Leng Shiqi also stopped thinking about hiding in the underworld. He wasn't moved by Lei Haoran's words. He wanted to use this opportunity to gather all the people who were preparing to assassinate him and then kill them all in one fell swoop. He smiled and shook his head. "Fourth Highness, I didn't get the heavenly thunderfire pearls." "You misunderstood." In the time it took to say these 2 sentences, Lei Haoran and the other experts had already approached. He said with a dark face, "Do you think we're all idiots? That power just now contained the extreme power of thunder fire. It must be the heavenly thunder fire pearls. I don't care how you entered the Cloud Tower Demon Palace. Since you can become the deputy chief of the Dark Thunder Guards, you must have some brains. I advise you to be smart and hand over the heavenly thunder fire pearls. In the future, the position of the Dark Thunder Guards commander will be yours. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless." However, when Leng Shiqi heard Lei Haoran's words, he felt even more relaxed. Lei Haoran's words were ruthless enough, but the more he spoke, the more it meant that he did not dare to kill Leng Shiqi. This was because Leng Shiqi was the vice director of the Dark Thunder Guards. This was a position that was second only to the commander and the 4 directors. He was the true leader of the Dark Thunder Guards. Even if Leng Shiqi was a deputy director with no real power, he was still a deputy director. Not to mention Lei Haoran, even if he really became the crown prince, he wouldn't be able to touch the deputy director of the Dark Thunder Guards. After all, the Dark Thunder Guards were directly under Lei Qingjun and had countless secrets and intelligence. If Lei Haoran really dared to kill Leng Shiqi, then he would have no chance at the throne. If Leng Shiqi was still an imperial supervisor, Lei Haoran might have already made a move. He wouldn't even bother talking nonsense with Leng Shiqi. However, the person standing behind Lei Haoran sighed slightly. He could already see that Lei Haoran's heart was in chaos. Usually, Lei Haoran was a scheming person. Now that he had found the heavenly thunderfire pearl, it meant that he was only one step away from the throne. No matter how shrewd Lei Haoran was, he still couldn't control his emotions. This way, he would be easily swayed by others. Leng Shiqi continued to shake his head and said, "Your Highness, I have already said that I didn't find the heavenly thunderfire pearl. Just now, it was just a commotion caused by breaking the formation here. Besides, has your Highness or anyone else seen the heavenly thunderfire pearl before? Why do you think that it was caused by the heavenly thunderfire pearl?" Everyone was speechless. No one had really seen the heavenly thunderfire pearl before. In the history of the Thunderfire dynasty, the last time this treasure appeared was hundreds of years ago. The people standing here weren't even born yet. Leng Shiqi stubbornly refused to admit it. He was still a deputy director. There was really nothing you could do about him. Lei Haoran's face was so gloomy that it was about to drip water. If he delayed here any longer, it might attract Lei Haoqing or Lei Haoyun. At that time, the situation would be even worse. He became more and more anxious. He said to Leng Shiqi, "Fine, your words are not proof. As long as you hand over your mustard seed bracelet and let me check it, I won't make things difficult for you if there really isn't the heavenly thunderfire pearl." Leng Shiqi's face also turned cold. "Your Highness, the mustard seed bracelet is my privacy. Isn't your Highness going too far?" Lei Haoran opened his mouth to refute, but the person behind him stopped him. "Lord Lu, I am Wei Ruishi. As far as I know, the Dark Thunder Guards are not allowed to participate in the fight between factions. In fact, we have no conflict. If Lord Lu really does find the heavenly thunderfire pearl, feel free to state your conditions. As long as they are not unreasonable, I believe His Highness will agree. Of course, if this is all a misunderstanding, after checking Lord Lu's mustard seed bracelet, His Highness will also give Lord Lu generous compensation. Moreover, only His Highness the 4th Prince will check it. He will definitely not treat Lord Lu badly." At the same time, Wei Ruishi was also secretly winking at Lei Haoran. Lei Haoran also realized that he had been too impulsive just now. He cupped his hands at Leng Shiqi and said, "Yes, I was rude just now. As long as Lord Lu is willing to give me the heavenly thunderfire pearl or let me check your mustard seed bracelet, you can state your conditions." Leng Shiqi pretended to hesitate for a while before saying, "It's not impossible to check my mustard seed bracelet, but your Highness must first give me a 7th grade precious weapon." A 7th grade precious weapon. How could a 7th grade precious weapon be taken so easily? Even if Lei Haoran was powerful and rich, the number of 7th grade precious weapons in his hands could be counted on one hand. Moreover, in order to win over the spirit cultivators, he had given them away. Lei Haoran was already cursing in his heart, what a big appetite. Seeing that Lei Haoran did not respond, Ling Shiqi said, since your highness does not have this sincerity, then forget it. In any case, I really did not find the heavenly thunderfire pearl. Your highness, there is no need to lose a 7th grade precious weapon for a possibility. It's not worth it. Was it worth it? If it was in normal times, of course not. But this was the heavenly thunderfire pearl, which was directly related to the throne. Even if it was only a possibility, it was worth it. Lei Haoran's molars were about to fall off. He forcibly suppressed the anger in his heart and said softly to Wei Ruoshi, Mr. Wei, I'm sorry. Wei Ruoshi said, Your Highness, don't say that. Then he took out a green feather fan. This is a 7th grade precious weapon, the green feather wind forest fan. It contains the power of gale and cotton at the same time. If Lord Lu is willing to hand over the mustard seed bracelet, it will be yours regardless of whether you have the heavenly thunderfire pearl or not. Ling Shiqi's expression kept changing. In the end, he reluctantly nodded and said, Okay, but you have to give me the green feather wind forest fan first. Wei Ruoshi glanced at Lei Haoran. Seeing him nod slightly, Wei Ruoshi threw the green feather wind forest fan over. Ling Shiqi looked troubled. He sighed slightly and was forced to take off his mustard seed bracelet. Chapter 670. Lei Haoran took Ling Shiqi's mustard seed bracelet and checked it carefully. Most of the items in it were spiritual stones. At a glance, there were over 1 million of them. In addition, there were a lot of level 5 and level 6 elixirs, materials, and spiritual weapons. There were even 2 level 7 precious weapons, namely the bloodstained star devil saber and the 10 directions floating snow spear. These 2 weapons were known to outsiders, so Ling Shiqi didn't hide them. Only the fox lotus bow and a lot of level 7 and level 8 materials were transferred to the system space. Lei Haoran was shocked by Ling Shiqi's wealth. Not to mention the gang's spirit realm, even a supreme power in the oneness of heaven and men realm might not have such wealth. And a level 7 precious weapon couldn't be bought with money. Of course, Lei Haoran didn't care about how much wealth Ling Shiqi had. He cared more about the heavenly thunderfire bead. However, he turned Ling Shiqi's mustard seed bracelet upside down and didn't find the heavenly thunderfire bead. The heavenly thunderfire bead is really not with him. Lei Haoran suddenly felt a little absent-minded. Seeing his expression, Ling Shiqi knew the result. It seems that your highness didn't find the heavenly thunderfire bead in it, which proves that what I said is true. Your highness, please give the bracelet back to me. Goodbye. Lei Haoran immediately looked at Ling Shiqi with a gloomy face and growled in a hoarse voice, I don't believe it. You must have other mustard seed bracelets. Take them out. Humph. Ling Shiqi didn't give him a good look and snorted, Your Highness, don't go too far. As a prince, it's immoral to break your promise. Wei Ruoshi answered, Your Highness didn't break your promise. We agreed to check Mr. Lu's mustard seed bracelets. Of course, I mean all of them. What a good way to raise the price. Well, I'm a lowly man, so I can only yield to your highness's majesty. Ling Shiqi sneered and threw out a few mustard seed bracelets. Take them and look at them. Lei Haoran was a little flustered as he took all the mustard seed bracelets. Upon closer inspection, there were actually 6 of them. He couldn't care about anything else and hurriedly checked them one by one. However, the more he looked, the uglier his expression became. No. No. Still nothing. If Ling Shiqi only had 1 mustard seed bracelet, Lei Haoran would be very disappointed that he didn't find the heavenly thunderfire bead. He would also lose the green feather wind forest fan because of this. However, Ling Shiqi had given him several mustard seed bracelets, which was equivalent to giving him hope. Then, that hope turned into disappointment. This psychological gap almost drove Lei Haoran crazy. Wei Ruoshi was afraid that Lei Haoran would go crazy. He transmitted his voice, "Your Highness, if Lu Xingji really doesn't have the heavenly thunderfire bead, we can't do anything to him. After all, he's the deputy general manager." Lei Haoran wanted nothing more than to tear Leng Shiqi into pieces. However, he was also very clear about the situation. He took a deep breath to calm himself down and put on a very stiff smile. "Mr. Lu, so it was all a misunderstanding. These mustard seed bracelets are returned as they were. As the saying goes, no discord, no concord. The green feather wind forest fan is a meeting gift for Mr. Lu." Leng Shiqi took back his mustard seed bracelet and cupped his fists. "In that case, this humble subject thanks your highness. The 9th prince and the 13th prince are coming. In order to avoid more misunderstandings, this humble subject will take his leave first." After saying this, he didn't go to explore the Yunlu Demon Palace. Instead, he turned and left. He could use his status as the deputy general manager to make Lei Haoran wary, but he might not be able to make the 3 princes wary. It was better to leave this place as soon as possible. Moreover, he had the heavenly thunderfire bead, which meant that he had the absolute initiative. For the next 2 days, Scar Sky would be his home ground. After leaving the Yunlu Demon Palace, Leng Shiqi opened the system map. There were a total of 6 or 7 places marked with abnormal spiritual energy. The Yunlu Demon Palace was one of them. He was deep in thought. Now, he needed to choose one of these places as the location where the heavenly thunderfire bead would appear. At first, he planned to sell the heavenly thunderfire bead through an auction. However, after thinking about it, if he really dared to take the heavenly thunderfire bead out in the open, he would probably be killed by the princes. He couldn't just court death like that. It was better to use the heavenly thunderfire bead to lure everyone here. If the princes wanted to kill him, he couldn't be bothered. He was more concerned about the people who were coming to kill him. As long as everyone came, the assassins hidden in the dark would naturally be among them. At that time, Leng Shiqi would have a way to catch them all in one fell swoop. He looked at the system map. Before he entered Scar Sky, he had obtained some information. There were a few dangerous places in Scar Sky that ordinary people didn't dare to approach. For example, the Wailing Forest, the Crack of the Abyss, the Annihilation Maze, and so on. Leng Shiqi looked at these dangerous places and finally chose the Yellow Mud Swamp. The swamp was not dangerous to spirit cultivators. Not to mention the 4 realms of heaven, even spirit transformation realm spirit cultivators could easily break free from the swamp's binding force. However, the Yellow Mud Swamp in Scar Sky was an exception. This place was very strange. First of all, the swamp was over 100 miles wide and had a terrifying suction force. If that was the case, it wouldn't be a big deal. Those who could enter Scar Sky were all spirit astral realm experts. With powerful spirit astral realm cultivators, they could break free from the suction force. What was even more terrifying was that the suction force could even suck away the spirit chi in a spirit cultivator's body. This also meant that in addition to the consumption of spirit chi in battle, a part of one's spirit chi had to be sucked away at all times. Therefore, one could not stay in there for too long. Other than that, there were also some monsters hidden in the swamp. They were not very strong, but in that unique environment, they could still cause a lot of trouble. Leng Shiqi decided to go there. However, he was not in a hurry to go to the Yellow Mud Swamp because the Delta Orgi was still in the underworld and did not know the situation outside. He found a remote place and teleported into the underworld. In the underworld, the Delta Orgi was leisurely walking around, like a tourist. When she saw Leng Shiqi return in one piece, she knew that he was out of danger. "This is the underworld you were talking about? It's really strange. By the way, I think Yushu and Xiongming are a little strange. What happened to them?" Speaking of this, Leng Shiqi was also a little puzzled. The Delta Orgi had entered the underworld long ago, so why didn't they get the inheritance like Yushu and the others? Just as Leng Shiqi was about to speak, Fengdu's city blossomed with a bloody light that bathed the Delta Orgi. An ancient voice sounded, "Conferred, Yuanyang Mingyu Ghost Emperor. The Delta Origi immediately entered a meditative state like Yushu and Xiongming. Leng Shiqi was already used to this kind of thing. However, he seemed to have sensed something and suddenly raised his head. It turned out that a mournful blood moon had appeared in the sky above the underworld. Chapter 671. Since the birth of the Mansion of the Dead, other than Leng Shiqi, there had been 3 people who had been conferred the title. They were Xidagarba King Tudong, Qingguang King Yushu, and Pingdeng King Xiongming. However, after these 3 people received the inheritance, the Mansion of the Dead did not change. However, when Delta Origi was conferred the title of Ghost Emperor Yuanyang Mingyu, it caused a change in the Mansion of the Dead, and a blood moon appeared. Moreover, Leng Shiqi did not remember that there was a Ghost Emperor Yuanyang Mingyu in the Mansion of the Dead, only the Ghost Emperors of the 5 directions. He pondered for a long time. It seemed that the Mansion of the Dead did not follow the same path as in his previous life. However, this was also good. For example, the inheritance obtained by Delta Origi was definitely the most suitable for her. Since the 3 people had entered the state of cultivation, Leng Shiqi did not disturb them. He left the Mansion of the Dead and directly used the Fate skill to teleport to the vicinity of the Yellow Mud Swamp. In the Cloud Tower Demon Palace, not long after Leng Shiqi left, the 9th Prince Lei Haoqing and the 13th Prince Lei Haoyan hurried over. They asked Lei Haoran at the same time, "Where is the Thunderfire Pearl?" Lei Haoran felt as uncomfortable as if he had eaten a fly. Facing these 2 people who had been secretly fighting to the death for a long time, he no longer hid himself. He shouted, "There is no heavenly Thunderfire Pearl here, scram!" Lei Haoqing also said bluntly, "Nonsense, there was the power of Thunderfire just now. If you don't know what's good for you, 13th brother, and I don't mind eliminating you now." Lei Haoran's overall strength was similar to Lei Haoyun's, but with Lei Haoqing, it was completely different, especially with the support of the top sect Thousand Illusion Sword sect behind Lei Haoqing. The 3 people who came in were all at the peak of the spirit astral realm and were very strong. Before the Cloud Tower Demon Palace, he and Lei Haoqing wanted to join forces to stop Lei Haoyun, but in the blink of an eye, the situation was reversed. Lei Haoyun did not say much nonsense. He waved his hand, and the spirit cultivators behind him slowly approached. Lei Haoran suddenly understood Leng Shiqi's feelings a little, but the difference was that he could not explain himself. Even if he did not admit it, the other party would not believe him. A battle seemed to be inevitable. "You 2 idiots, if you want to swallow me, be careful not to break all your teeth. Do you really want to fight to the death now and let Big Brother take advantage of you? The Heavenly Thunderfire Pearl is not here. If I had really obtained the Heavenly Thunderfire Pearl, would I have waited here for you to come? Use your brain." Lei Haoqing and Lei Haoyun hesitated. What Lei Haoran said made sense. However, it was impossible for them to let Lei Haoran leave just like that. After all, Lei Haoran could be lying. Lei Haoran hardened his heart and said sullenly, "Since you don't believe me, then we can only fight. After all, the throne is Big Brother's. Sooner or later, you will have to come down and accompany me." Lei Haoyun pondered for a moment, then suggested, "4th brother, it's not that we don't want to believe you. On the contrary, we all hope that you didn't get the Heavenly Thunderfire Pearl. In that case, at the very least, we all have a chance. To be honest, among the few of us, Big Brother is still the strongest. We just happened to be here and didn't find the Heavenly Thunderfire Pearl. Why don't we take this opportunity to join forces?" When he said this, Lei Haoqing and Lei Haoran's hearts skipped a beat. That's right, in terms of strength, the first Prince Lei Haoyan was definitely the strongest. Lei Haoyan himself was a great master of the unity of heaven and man realm. This time, he entered the Void Scar Sky because of a restriction. At most, he could only exert the cultivation of the peak of the spirit astral realm. Once he exceeded this limit, he would immediately be excluded from the Void Scar Sky and lose the qualifications to compete. However, he was still a genuine unity of heaven and man realm. Even if his cultivation was restricted, an ordinary late-stage spirit astral realm was no match for him. Moreover, Lei Haoyan was not only surrounded by the spirit cultivator sects that he had roped in, but also the various generals' mansions that supported him. These people had all fought their way back from countless battlefields. Their fighting strength far exceeded that of spirit cultivators of the same level, and their numbers were also the largest. Therefore, Lei Haoyan was the one that they feared the most. Joining forces was indeed a good choice. Now, these three people were hostile to each other and wary of each other, but they also wanted to join forces to eliminate Lei Haoyan first. This time, they could not fight, but they could not avoid a war of words. At this time, Ling Shiqi had already arrived at the yellow mud swamp. He floated in the air with 4 wings behind him. With a glance, he saw hundreds of monsters that looked like large loaches in the swamp. He narrowed his eyes and opened his hand. He didn't seem to use any spiritual technique, but the swamp under his feet suddenly exploded and surged wildly like a wave. Phew! Ling Shiqi withdrew his palm and breathed a sigh of relief. The corner of his mouth also raised a smile. Here it is. Then, a formation plate and dozens of small yellow formation flags appeared in his hand. This was a 6th-level formation he found after refreshing the system store, the Earth Mixing Formation. This was a trap formation, which was enough to trap dozens of spirit astral realm masters. With a wave of his arm, all the formation flags scattered, arranged in strange positions, and finally disappeared. Ling Shiqi held the formation plate in his hand and muttered something. The formation plate suddenly became extremely heavy, and he sank it into the deep swamp. After arranging all this, Ling Shiqi hid in the swamp and then teleported into the Mansion of the Dead. In the Mansion of the Dead, Delta Origi and the others seemed to be showing signs of waking up. Ling Shiqi also sat down and took out black grass and placed it in front of him. He picked up one of them, and a faint black stream of air was absorbed by the black mark in the spirit crystal. He planned to cultivate in the Mansion of the Dead for a while. Although he had found the heavenly thunderfire pearl and made arrangements, he did not plan to start his plan now. Calculating the time, it had only been a day since the void scar opened. If he let the heavenly thunderfire pearl appear so early, no matter who got it first, they would become the target of public criticism. At that time, there would only be countless fierce battles, and they might even fight until 2 days later. This way, the situation would be completely out of his control. He planned to expose the heavenly thunderfire pearl in the last few hours, so that everything would go according to his plan. Before that, he had to do his best to increase his strength. These black grass were a shortcut for him to improve his cultivation. Time passed very quickly, but also very slowly. A day and a half passed just like that. To Ling Shiqi, it was like sleeping, and it passed by in the blink of an eye. However, to Lei Haoyan and the other princes, every moment was incomparably torturous. They had already been searching in the void scar for 2.5 days, but they had not even seen the shadow of the heavenly thunderfire pearl. From the beginning, they only wanted to find the heavenly thunderfire pearl as quickly as possible. Even if someone else found it, they would just snatch it. They had never thought about what would happen if no one found the heavenly thunderfire pearl. Would all the princes lose the right to inherit the throne? They did not want to believe it in their hearts, but thinking about it, if you can't even find a single pearl, you are too useless. What right do you have to inherit the throne? Time passed bit by bit. When there were only 6 to 8 hours left, a shocking power suddenly burst out, shaking the entire void scar sky. All the spirit cultivators looked in the same direction. There, the light of the heavenly thunderfire pearl soared into the sky, dyeing half the sky. As long as they saw this scene, their expressions were filled with shock and joy. They knew that the heavenly thunderfire pearl had finally appeared. The black mark on his spirit crystal was like a bottomless pit, absorbing the power of this black grass and eventually transforming it into his own spiritual power. Now, there were only about 300 stalks of black grass left. In fact, Ling Shiqi still had time to refine them all. However, from the 6th to the 7th level of Gang's spirit realm, there was a barrier between the middle stage and the late stage. He was afraid that the remaining grass was not enough to break through. Moreover, the major event was imminent, so he held back and did not break through by force. The 4 princes looked at the heavenly thunderfire pearl with red eyes, but they were not in a hurry to make a move. Because the heavenly thunderfire pearl was still surrounded by terrible thunder and fire. Even if they were far away, they could only stand here safely by supporting their gang spirit. It could be said that no one could easily get close to the heavenly thunderfire pearl. However, the thunder and fire all over the sky were slowly dissipating. They just needed to wait for a while. Of course, that would be the time when the battle really began. And such a terrible movement was actually caused by Leng Shiqi using the 2 heavenly thunderfire pearls to repel each other. Now that he had led everyone here, he quietly opened his supercilious eyes to observe everyone around him. Sure enough, he found that many people were glancing at him faintly. Leng Shiqi roughly estimated that there were more than 30 people. He had to secretly admire Li Juecheng. What a big deal. It should be known that these people were not ordinary people. Those who could enter Air Scar Sky all had a strong background and powerful strength. God knew how much Li Juecheng had spent to bribe more than 30 masters to besiege and kill him. However, Leng Shiqi was a little puzzled. Li Juecheng should have guessed that Li Juning's death had something to do with him. Since even the real oneness of heaven and men realm couldn't kill him, more than 30 masters of Gang's spirit realm might not be able to do it. Li Juecheng would not fight a battle unprepared, which could be seen from Li Juning's various weapons. Therefore, Leng Shiqi dared to conclude that these people who came to kill him also had some unexpected trump cards. Even if he had made a backup plan, he still couldn't underestimate anyone. Time passed little by little, and the power of thunder and fire in the sky gradually dissipated. After about half an hour, a person finally moved. He was the eldest prince, Lei Haoyan. With a single leap, Lei Haoyan leaped 1,000 feet into the air. At this time, the power of the thunderfire hadn't completely dissipated, but Lei Haoyan relied on his powerful body and armor to force his way into the thunderfire and grab the thunderfire heavenly pearl. The other 3 princes' expressions changed greatly. None of them expected Lei Haoyan's strength to be so strong that he took the initiative in a moment of carelessness. Lei Haoyan shouted in a low voice, "Old 9, Old 13, what are you still hesitating for? You have seen Lei Haoyan's strength. He alone is equivalent to 10 people. If we don't join forces, we won't have a chance." Lei Haoqing nodded slightly. Yen Mu, who was beside him, suddenly drew his sword. The dreamy sword light with amazing sword intent swept in all directions and directly killed Lei Haoyan's subordinates. Yen Mu's sword light was arrogant, and for a moment, no one could stop him. Leng Shiqi was also a little surprised. Last time, he had fought with Yen Mu on Shenduan Mountain. At that time, Yen Mu did not really use his sword. Now that he had a 7th grade sword in his hand, he could display the strength of the 1,000 Illusions sword sect. Wei Ruishi, who was on Lei Haoyan's side, formed a spiritual seal with his hand. In an instant, a fierce wind blew, and the sky changed color. Lei Haoyan waved his hand gently, and the 12 Gang spirit realm experts behind him formed a formation. Each of them used a different spiritual weapon, and like a meat grinder, they rushed into Lei Haoyan's group. Lei Haoyan's subordinates bore the brunt of the attack, and several of them died. They were extremely shocked. The 3 of them actually joined forces. Quickly form a battle formation. We must hold them back. Your Highness, leave quickly. Lei Haoyan had just obtained the heavenly thunder fire pearl and thought that the situation was settled, but the situation became one-sided in an instant. He did not know when Lei Haoyan and the other 2 had met and secretly joined forces. He quickly made a decision, and that was to escape. As long as he could hold on for 3 days, he would naturally leave Sky Scar and obtain the position of the Crown Prince. Chapter 673. Thinking of this, Lei Haoyan rushed out like a cannonball as soon as he landed. No, he's going to escape. Elder Yen, stop him. Mr. Wei, it's up to you. Lei Haoyun said to a black-robed man next to him, act according to the plan. The strongest men of the other three princes left the battlefield at the same time and chased after Lei Haoyun crazily, while the rest were killing Lei Haoyun's supporters. Leng Shiqi touched his chin. He thought that the four princes would fight here, and he didn't expect that Lei Haoqing and the other two had secretly joined hands. In fact, they could join hands more or less because of Leng Shiqi, but he didn't know it. He said to himself, although it's a little unexpected, it's still under my control. Then he looked around for a while and left quickly in the opposite direction of Lei Haoyun. As soon as he left, a series of changes took place. Some people who were still watching quietly left, and some deliberately left a few words. The ownership of the Thunderfire Pearl has nothing to do with me anyway. It's better to explore more treasures. That's right. There's not much time left. Let's go. Li Gang and Gong Lianghui in the crowd also looked at each other and silently followed Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi had already noticed that there were many people following behind him, and he laughed in his heart. The yellow mud swamp was very large, with a radius of hundreds of miles. The Thunderfire Pearl was in the north, and he was walking to the center of the yellow mud swamp at this time. That was the place where he set up the formation. The reason why he didn't put the Thunderfire Pearl in the center of the yellow mud swamp was that he was afraid that the formation masters among the spirit cultivators would notice it. And once the Thunderfire Pearl appeared, there would definitely be a fierce battle, and maybe his formation would be accidentally destroyed. Leng Shiqi walked to the center, and more people were following him. When he came to the center of the yellow mud swamp, there were already 37 Gang Spirit Realm Masters following him. Suddenly, Leng Shiqi stopped and sneered, "Everyone, why are you following me so hard?" The people behind him said, "Who's following you? We'll go our own way, and you go yours. Who cares about you?" Exactly. It was just on the way. There were also people who agreed. Leng Shiqi said sarcastically, "This is the yellow mud swamp. Normal people don't dare to enter, and there are no treasures here. Every single one of you has a high status, yet you actually said such laughable words. What exactly is your purpose?" As they spoke, more than a dozen people had already circled behind the Leng Shiqi. At this time, they no longer concealed themselves. Li Gang raised his head and said, "Lu Xingji, there's no harm in telling you that this yellow mud marsh will be your burial ground. Don't blame us. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for not knowing how to appreciate favors and offending someone you shouldn't have. You've finally revealed your foxtail. However, you think trash like you can kill me? Aren't you dreaming?" Leng Shiqi continued to mock and ridicule. It was as if he did not place the experts in his eyes at all. When he said this, everyone glared at him. Gong Lianghui stepped forward and said, "Lu Xingji, we know you're strong. Do you think we're unprepared? Everyone, hurry up." Before Gong Lianghui's voice died away, the 37 masters of Gang Spirit Realm threw out something at the same time. Looking carefully, it was a blue nail, which was more than 1 foot long. The icy force on it could be felt from a distance. Immediately, all the blue nails suddenly burst open. Icy threads appeared and intertwined with each other to form a huge ice net. The area within a radius of several miles suddenly became a world of ice and snow, and the cold wind was biting. Gong Lianghui laughed, "Lu Xingji, you have the golden earth dragon flame in your body, which is really powerful. But each ice thread is weaved by the 1,000-year-old ice silkworm exhausting its vitality. Don't show off your golden earth dragon flame." Leng Shiqi's face darkened. Last time when Li Juning came to kill him, he was wearing an ice thread cold suit. This time, he directly made a huge net. The golden earth dragon flame in his body became a little sluggish. It seemed that it really couldn't play any role. But he still disdained, "This preparation is not enough." You're so stubborn." Li Gang snorted and took out a piece of talisman paper. After muttering something, he pasted it on his forehead. In an instant, Li Gang's aura suddenly changed, from the middle stage of Gang Spirit Realm directly to the peak of Gang Spirit Realm. No, it was stronger than the peak of Gang Spirit Realm. It was clearly the half-step oneness of Heaven and Men Realm. What was more terrible was that Li Gang's aura was no longer Li Gang's. A layer of faint gray light rose around him and wrapped him up. From the appearance, it seemed that he had become another person. That was Li Juge, the master of oneness of Heaven and Men Realm of Li family of Dark Thunder Guard. Gong Lianghui also made the same move. His aura was better than Li Juge's. He was the fourth uncle of Li family. This change even surprised others. This is the spirit adhesion skill. The kind of forbidden skill that consumes the cultivation and lifespan of both sides. Yes, from their appearance, they are the two masters of oneness of Heaven and Men Realm of Li family. It is said that the fourth uncle is old, but he still dares to use such a forbidden skill. No matter what the result is today, I'm afraid he doesn't have much time left. Director Li really paid a lot in order to kill Lu Xingji. Li Gang said, and his voice also changed, "Today, you must die." His voice sounded a little stiff, but his tone could make people feel cold all over. Li Juge flicked his finger, and a red spiritual gang directly tore the air and hit Ling Shiqi's heart. The sound of spiritual gang cutting through the air was unbearable. At the same time, Gong Lianghui chopped down with his hand. Suddenly, thunder spiritual gang broke out, and the sky and the earth were full of the power of thunder and lightning. In terms of power, it was not weaker than the previous heavenly thunder fire bead. The fourth uncle himself was at the late stage of oneness of Heaven and Men Realm, so his strength was naturally better than Li Juge's. Their spiritual bodies were attached to Li Gang and Gong Lianghui. Although they could only exert the cultivation of Gang's spirit realm, their strength was very close to oneness of Heaven and Men Realm. In the face of such a terrible attack, Ling Shiqi smiled strangely. Then he made a gesture with his hands. In an instant, the surrounding earth shook, and a burst of thick earth power gushed out, rushing to the sky. In the blink of an eye, the earth matrix appeared, condensing into dozens of stone rooms to cover everyone. The attack of Li Juge and the fourth uncle also hit the stone wall that suddenly appeared. To their shock, such power only made a few cracks on the stone wall. If they wanted to break the stone wall, they had to attack several times in a row. If they were like this, the others would be trapped in it for the time being. Chapter 674. Fourth uncle and Li Juge were separated, but they could know each other's location with their strong perception. There is a formation here. Li Juge transmitted the voice with disbelief. Fourth uncle frowned deeply and said, "It's a trapping formation of the earth system with strong defensive power. Even we can't break it in a short time. There is no formation in the yellow mud swamp at all. Lu Xingji may have arranged it in advance. What should we do? If Lu Xingji escapes at this time, we can't use the spirit adhesion again. We can't kill him by relying on others. He can set up the formation in advance and lead us out. I'm afraid he has already guessed that we are going to kill him. He is too terrible. We must kill him, or there will be endless troubles. Break the formation quickly." They were very anxious at this time. The spirit adhesion was a forbidden art. Even if they were in the realm of oneness of Heaven and men, they could not maintain it for a long time. If Ling Shiqi took the opportunity to escape, they would probably lose all their previous efforts. However, they did not know that Ling Shiqi did not want to escape at all. In a stone room of the earth mixing formation, a one-eyed man in the middle stage of Gang's spirit realm was constantly bombarding the stone wall with Gang's spirit of wood. Suddenly, a monster with 4 arms drilled out of the stone wall. A dark devil saber was chopped out, and the evil spirit was so violent that it seemed that the gate of hell was opened. The one-eyed man just reacted, but his mind was eroded by the amazing evil spirit. After one slash, his body and head were cut into 2. The first one. Ling Shiqi murmured, and then drilled into another stone room. In the outside world, everyone remained the same, quietly looking at the place where the jade plates were placed. After some people died in succession at the beginning, it became quiet. Only a few people died on the last day. They also guessed that the people inside had not found the heavenly thunder bead, otherwise it would not be so quiet. But at this time, 4 or 5 jade plates suddenly broke at the same time. Moreover, these jade tablets were placed together. A little eunuch immediately picked up the jade plate. After seeing the name on it, his hands trembled. Cheji Field Officer Peng Ming, dead. North Town Thunder Flame Army Deputy General Yunzhua, dead. Jinshi Marshal Mansion Vanguard Wu Yingzong, dead. He read out a few names in succession, and the audience immediately buzzed. The people who had died were all from the military. Furthermore, they were all followers of the Crown Prince, Lei Haoyan. Everyone could roughly guess what had happened in Space Scar Sky. Lei Haoyan must have been the first to find the heavenly Thunderfire Pearl and then been attacked. Soon after, a few more jade tablets shattered. There were people from Lei Haoran, Lei Haoqing, and Lei Haoyan inside. Presumably, they had already started fighting over the heavenly Thunderfire bead. Everyone stared at the jade tablet, trying to deduce the situation inside Void Scar Sky. However, the little eunuch's words made them a little puzzled. Gu Yu, a disciple of the first-rate sect, Wu Wei Pavilion, has fallen. Martial Might Pavilion? Many people were puzzled. I have some impression of this Gu Yu. He seems to be one-eyed. They had more or less inquired about the Martial Might Pavilion. It was a neutral sect and did not rely on any prince. Then why did Gu Yu die? Maybe he's fighting for other treasures. Don't worry about him. That's true. The final owner of the heavenly Thunderfire Pearl is the most important thing. They did not intend to think too much about it. However, the little eunuch's voice rang out again. Tan Heyu, a disciple of the first-rate sect, Shantian Square, has fallen. Another disciple of a neutral sect had been killed. At first, not many people paid attention to it. However, the little eunuch continued to say a few more names. They were all disciples of neutral sects. The strange thing was that the jade tablets shattered in a rather orderly manner. Every few breaths, one would shatter. Occasionally, there would be the jade tablets of the 4 princes mixed in. This situation was completely out of everyone's expectations. It could be said that it was the complete opposite of what they had expected. In just a short while, more than 20 people had already fallen. Perhaps these people were intentionally neutral. In fact, they had already secretly sided with one of the princes. Now that they had appeared, they were caught off guard. But they shouldn't have died so quickly. They were all at the spirit astral realm. It's not like they were pigs. Everyone had a huge question mark in their hearts. What in the world happened in Space Scar Sky? Among the people present, only one person could guess what had happened. This person was Li Juecheng. Since the beginning of Lei Qingjuan's birthday banquet, Li Juecheng had been unusually low-key. Even when he came in with eunuch Gao and Leng Shiqi, he did not look at Leng Shiqi. Perhaps in his heart, Leng Shiqi was already a dead man. Why should he care about a dead man? After Leng Shiqi entered the Void Scar Sky, Li Juecheng couldn't help but laugh secretly. Everything was within his expectations. All he had to do now was to wait for Leng Shiqi's jade token to shatter. Unfortunately, what he waited for was the jade tablets of the people he had bribed to shatter. Li Juecheng knew that the plan had begun. He secretly clenched his fists. Li Juge, 4th uncle, you can't let Lu Xingji come out alive. In the yellow mud swamp of Space Scar Sky, Leng Shiqi's blood-stained star devil saber lived up to its name. It was already stained with the blood of spirit astral realm masters. He stood in front of a corpse and murmured, the 24th one. The blood-stained star devil saber made a gurgling sound, absorbing all the blood and turning it into a part of power to feed Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi killed more than 20 masters of spirit astral realm in a short time. Even if his spiritual power was abnormally strong, he still could not bear it. In order to kill with one blow, He used all his strength every time without holding back, so his spiritual power was greatly consumed. The blood-stained star devil saber's characteristic of nourishing itself with battle made him able to continue. However, the bad news was that the remaining dozen people were the most powerful ones. Most of them were from the Dark Thunder Guards, the Discipline Commission and the Patrol Guards. In particular, Li Juge and fourth uncle had already broken into the stone room at the beginning. Fortunately, Ling Shiqi was prepared. He had set up several stone rooms around them, which could delay them for a little while. Faced with such a situation, it seemed impossible for him to wipe out all of these people. However, Ling Shiqi still held this idea firmly, because he was not alone. Ling Shiqi thought, and three figures appeared beside him out of thin air. They were Delta Origi, Yushu, and Xiongming. They had already woken up. At this time, each of them was filled with the qi of the underworld. Their aura was also vague, so no one could tell their real cultivation. Ling Shiqi whispered, "It's time for the underworld to appear." Then he shot 3 beams of spiritual light into the bodies of the 3 people, so that they could move freely in the earth-mixing formation. Ling Shiqi made a gesture with his hands, and most of the stone rooms in the formation disintegrated automatically. Except for Li Juge and fourth uncle, all the people were released. And he used all the power of the formation to trap the 2 strongest people. The dozen people were suddenly rescued. They thought that the formation had been broken, but what awaited them was the real hell. Xiongming was the first to make a move. He moved and disappeared. Suddenly, endless darkness appeared, and most of the yellow mud swamp was covered in darkness. 4 people in the gang's spirit realm, they could see in the night, but they could not see anything in the darkness. The dozen people were a little panicked, but they were not idiots. They all used their spiritual skills, trying to use their gang spirit to illuminate an area. However, it was a pity that there was still no light, only endless darkness. No, not exactly. At this time, spots of jade light drifted out, swaying like willow branches, but in the darkness, they were creepy and horrible like ghosts. As the light spots flowed past, they unknowingly left streaks of blood on everyone's bodies, but they were still unaware of it. Because everyone was attracted by something above their heads. It turned out that a ferocious blood moon had appeared in the sky. It was not a pure blood moon, but there seemed to be countless ghosts dancing in it. What frightened people was that the blood moon was falling slowly, as if it was going to kill everyone. Delta Origi and Xiongming had defeated the dozen masters with only the strength of 3 people. Chapter 675. At first, Ling Shiqi wanted to work together with the 4 of them to get rid of these people first, but now it seemed that the 3 of them had completely suppressed everyone else. Hengming's curtain of darkness was amazing. Even Ling Shiqi had to rely on his supercilious eyes and powerful mental power to barely see. Yushu used some unknown method to injure people invisibly. Delta Origi was even more terrifying. She seemed to have combined the inheritance of the underworld with her own cultivation method. The blood moon fell from the sky as if the sky was collapsing. After obtaining the inheritance of the underworld, their strength had skyrocketed to such an extent. This was something that Ling Shiqi did not expect. Not only their strength, but the feeling they gave off was completely different. It was as if their cultivation realm could no longer be described simply by the spiritual cultivation system of this world. Delta Origi and the others' strength had greatly increased. Ling Shiqi was naturally happy, but he was also a little speechless. Why didn't he get the inheritance? Since the 3 of them were enough to deal with the rest of the people, Ling Shiqi did not intend to interfere. He had stronger enemies to deal with. Ling Shiqi turned into a stream of light and entered a huge stone room. The person trapped inside was Li Jugu. Li Jugu had already shattered 3 or 4 stone walls in a row, but the strength of the stone walls suddenly skyrocketed. Even he had to go through a lot of trouble. He became more and more anxious and irritable, afraid that Ling Shiqi would escape. But at this time, Ling Shiqi appeared directly in front of him. "You didn't escape?" Li Jugu asked in surprise. Ling Shiqi shook his head gently and said, "Why should I escape? I want to see how strong a unity of heaven realm cultivator can be with spiritual attachment." Arrogant. Li Ju said ferociously, "Since you don't escape, only death awaits you." Ling Shiqi raised the 10 directions floating snow spear. "You Li family members like to talk nonsense. Li Zhongtao and Li Juning were the same. In the end, they both died at my hands." Seeing the 10 directions floating snow spear, Li Ju's expression became even more terrifying. At the same time, he said in surprise, "You really killed Li Juning?" "Impossible." Ling Shiqi snickered, thinking that this Li Ju's state of mind was not very good. "Believe it or not, that's up to you. By the way, you set up a giant ice net outside to contain my red gold earth dragon flame. Actually, I have to thank all of you. Right now, this place is filled with pure ice spiritual energy, which is just enough to display the power of the 10 directions floating snow spear." The long spear in his hand trembled, and the cold underworld breath filled the stone room. Specks of crimson ice crystals froze the stone walls, and the stone room instantly turned into a crimson hell. Li Ju was also suffering. He used the spiritual adhesion technique to attach to Li Gang and could only exert a small part of his power. Moreover, he couldn't use power beyond the Gang's spirit realm, or else he would be kicked out of the void scar sky. Their original plan was to prepare the ice silk giant net and the art of spiritual adhesion, and then gather more than 30 Gang spirit realm cultivators to attack him together. No matter how strong the Ling Shiqi was, he could not escape death. But who would have thought that Ling Shiqi had already set up a formation in the yellow mud swamp? And it was an earth trap formation. The earth trap formation was unique in a place like the yellow mud swamp, and this formation was really difficult to deal with. Although it had no offensive power, it could greatly restrict everyone. If Li Ju wanted to fight with Ling Shiqi one-on-one with the art of spiritual adhesion, he was not sure that he could kill Ling Shiqi. Moreover, Li Ju had broken the stone walls several times in a row and consumed a lot of spiritual energy. Now he was already struggling to face the Crimson Hell. In particular, the nearby area was also covered with a layer of ice silk giant net, which greatly enhanced the activity of the ice spiritual energy and made the Crimson Hell more powerful. However, he could not give up. Li Ju's hands formed into claws, tore the ice crystals, and went straight to Ling Shiqi. The Gang Qi brought by the biting cold claw was as sharp as a blade, and the Crimson Hell could not block it at all. He growled, "Boy, don't be too arrogant." The 10 directions floating snow spear in Ling Shiqi's hand was covered with a layer of golden scales. The spear's shadows turned into bursts of golden waves, and smashed down overwhelmingly. Li Ju's offensive changed. His claws suddenly turned into fists, and immediately shattered the spear's shadows. After 2 moves, Li Ju realized that Ling Shiqi's strength was not as strong as he thought. He secretly said, "It seems that I overestimated him." However, a yellow light flashed in the depths of Ling Shiqi's eyes, and a strange force suddenly appeared in the stone room. Li Ju immediately felt an invisible force pressing down on his head. Cracks appeared on the solid stone wall under his feet, and he couldn't even stand on his feet. Li Ju's Gang Qi burst out, and spiritual energy overflowed, barely stabilizing his body. What kind of power is this? It seems to be gravity. He was shocked. Of course, Ling Shiqi would not let go of such a good opportunity. He tilted his long spear and immediately threw the 10 directions floating snow spear directly. The spear body was like an ice dragon coming out of the sea, wrapped in crimson ice crystals, and went straight for Li Ju's forehead. At the same time, Ling Shiqi's hands behind his back turned into claws. Demonic qi soaked, and the cold wind whistled. White bone claw shadows were about to tear Li Ju into countless pieces. 9 white bone claw. Facing the 10 directions floating snow spear and 9 white bone claw, Li Ju took a deep breath and pointed his finger. Suddenly, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth surged wildly, and a subtle finger force appeared to meet the 10 directions floating snow spear. With a loud clang, the seemingly weak finger force blocked the 7th level precious weapon 10 directions floating snow spear. However, the white bone ghost claws were already close to him. Li Zhuge punched out, and the majestic fist force condensed, as if he was waiting for an attack. Leng Shiqi sneered, and a light flashed behind his head. A small golden sword emerged, and then shot out at an incredible speed. Sword of Primordial Spirit. Ever since he fought with Li Zhuge, he had not used a powerful spiritual skill. First, he did not have much spiritual energy left. Second, he still had to face the more powerful enemy of the Li family's 4th uncle, so he needed to conserve his energy. Third, he had to find the most suitable opportunity to use the Sword of Primordial Spirit. Li Zhuge and the Li family's 4th uncle must have known all the information about Leng Shiqi, but he had only comprehended the Sword of Primordial Spirit a few days ago. Moreover, Li Zhuge had attached himself to Li Gang through spiritual adhesion. The biggest flaw of this kind of secret method was, of course, the extreme instability of spiritual energy, and the most terrible thing was spiritual attacks. Leng Shiqi was also worried about whether Li Zhuge had a treasure that could resist illusions, more or less able to block part of the spiritual attacks. Therefore, he needed to let Li Zhuge devote himself to the battle so that he had no time to protect his spiritual energy. Sure enough, when Li Zhuge discovered the Sword of Primordial Spirit, his face suddenly showed a look of horror. Sword of Primordial Spirit, how is this possible? Nothing is impossible. Go back and tell Li Zhuqing that sooner or later, I will take his head. Leng Shiqi said sternly. The Sword of Primordial Spirit slashed through. This kind of spiritual attack could not be defended against by ordinary means. The Sword of Primordial Spirit directly penetrated Li Zhuge's forehead. Li Zhuge immediately let out a miserable scream. At this time, a pendant around his neck emitted bursts of light blue light to protect his spiritual energy. Leng Shiqi had expected this. His eyes flashed with 9-colored light and instantly shattered the blue light. Then the gray light all over Li Zhuge's body dissipated, revealing Li Gang's body. At this time, Li Gang had lost a lot of weight and was dying. Leng Shiqi took his life with a wave of his hand. Chapter 676. The battle between Leng Shiqi and Li Zhuge actually lasted for a very short time. Counting the time they spent talking, it was only a short time. In fact, if Leng Shiqi went all out, he could even kill Li Zhuge in 1 or 2 moves. But in addition to Li Zhuge, there was also the Li family's 4th uncle who was even more troublesome. And even if he repelled these 2 people today, he would only be able to break their spiritual adhesion technique. With their unity of heaven and man cultivation, they would at most need to recuperate for a period of time. At worst, they would lose some of their lifespan. This was equivalent to not being able to kill them. Once Leng Shiqi exposed too many of his trump cards, it would be even more disadvantageous for him in the future. Leng Shiqi was about to pick up the mustard seed bracelet on the ground, but he didn't expect that a stone wall beside him would suddenly explode. It was forcibly broken by someone. Leng Shiqi's heart moved, and his body appeared in the other corner of the stone room as if he had teleported. At this time, there was only one person trapped in the array, and only one person could violently destroy the stone wall. That person was the Li family's 4th uncle who had possessed Gong Lianghui's body. He was also the most powerful enemy Leng Shiqi had to face. Li family's 4th uncle immediately saw Li Gang lying on the ground without any breath. He also knew that Li Zhuge's spiritual adhesion technique had been broken, and his heart couldn't help but sink. What made him even more uncomfortable was that he could no longer sense the aura of the other spirit cultivators around him, and there were probably not many of them left. At this time, he looked at Leng Shiqi, and in addition to the killing intent in his eyes, there was another emotion, and that was a trace of fear. Li family's 4th uncle wasn't afraid of Leng Shiqi's strength, but his potential. If this assassination was included, they had already assassinated Leng Shiqi 3 times in a row. The first time, they missed, and the second time, Li Juning, who was at the unity of heaven and man realm, died. This time, the siege could be considered a failure. Without everyone's cooperation, Li family's fourth uncle had no confidence in killing Ling Shiqi, just like Li Jugu. Ling Shiqi laughed when he saw Li family's fourth uncle looking at him. Li family's fourth uncle, is it? I don't mind telling you that you're the only one left of the 37 people who came to kill me. Next up, whether I fight or leave is up to me. Your spiritual attachment alone is not enough to keep me here. If you dare to use power beyond the spirit astral realm, you will be sent out of Void Scar. In Void Scar Sky, only the first prince, Lei Haoyan, had this possibility. Once you were pushed out, it would definitely be revealed that Li Ju Cheng had done something behind the scenes. At that time, even Li Juecheng wouldn't be able to explain himself. Daring to tamper with the emperor's selection of the crown prince, this crime was enough to make Li Juecheng lose his position as one of the four great chiefs. If you rely on your current strength, it's even more impossible for you to kill me. In other words, you've completely failed. Not bad. Li family's fourth uncle also said frankly, then why are you still here? Is it just to humiliate this old man? Of course not. Ling Shiqi shook his head. It said that the spiritual attachment is a forbidden technique. It consumes the essence, blood and lifespan of both parties. Moreover, there's a big difference between dispelling it voluntarily and being forced to do so. Fourth uncle, you're already old. If you suffer a backlash from the spiritual attachment, I'm afraid you won't be able to fight for a while. Li family's fourth uncle understood Ling Shiqi's meaning. Ling Shiqi wanted to kill his spiritual body and severely injure him, thus weakening the Li family's strength. Li family's fourth uncle's eyes were calm. He said calmly, "You've said so much to me, but you're just stalling for time. After a series of battles, how much strength do you have left? My spiritual attachment can't be maintained for too long. You want to stall for time to recover your spiritual power and waste my time. Then guess why I'm standing here and letting you stall for time?" Li family's fourth uncle's words hit the nail on the head. Ling Shiqi also had a faint ominous feeling. Li family's fourth uncle suddenly raised his palm and said resolutely, "You're right, but you're wrong about one thing. That is my determination. Your potential is too horrible. I can't kill you this time, but I'll force you to show your real trump card even at the cost of my lifespan. The reason why I let you stall for time is that I'm also stalling for time." With a roar, he suddenly struck out with his palm. Violent gang qi filled the sky, and in an instant, the vigorous palm energy caused the entire earth chaos formation to tremble. It was even to the point where it affected the spiritual energy of the world. The power contained within it was enough to make anyone pale at the mere mention of it. Ling Shiqi was also surprised that Li family's fourth uncle could use such a powerful palm power in the state of spiritual attachment. What was terrible was that the knife momentum was not beyond the scope of Gang's spirit realm, but it made Ling Shiqi feel that his life was in danger. Li family's fourth uncle turned his belief, determination to kill Ling Shiqi into the palm power. Ling Shiqi did not dare to slack off. He clenched his fists, and black and white lights suddenly appeared on both sides. Then two pillars of light rose into the sky, even directly penetrating all the stone walls and rushing into the sky. Just when Ling Shiqi was about to merge the black and white light pillars to perform Wandering Dragon Great Void, Li family's fourth uncle smiled strangely. He suddenly shouted, "Break!" After that, the might of the heaven-shaking palm suddenly changed. It was like a sharp sword that slashed out horizontally and slashed apart everything in the world. Even the connection between Ling Shiqi and the black and white light pillars in the sky was cut off. Ling Shiqi's face froze, and he felt a little incredible in his heart. His Wandering Dragon Great Void was broken? Well, that wasn't exactly the case. To be more precise, he hadn't even been able to use Roaming Dragon, the Great Void. He had already been interrupted when he was making his first move. Ha ha ha. Li family's fourth uncle let out a rare wild laugh. "Lu Xingji, this old man has studied your void swimming dragon for a long time and has already found a way to break it. If you don't have any other trump cards today, you'd better leave your life behind. In fact, Ling Shiqi did have a lot of trump cards, but he did not want to expose them in front of the Li family. Now, with a fierce face, he gently touched his dantian with a finger. In the spirit sea, a mini red flame dragon suddenly became excited. In an instant, a golden red flame dragon roared and flew into the sky, and the raging golden flame burned everything in the world. The giant ice net specially used to restrain the golden earth dragon flame was all burned out in a breath. Ling Shiqi had directly released the golden earth dragon flame's fire seed. In the past, he had only used a part of the flame. If he directly used the golden earth dragon flame, it would cause great damage to the fire seed. However, in order to protect his own information, he had no choice but to use this method. The flame dragon was born, and the dragon's might descended upon the world. Under the endless golden earth dragon flame, whether it was the earth chaos formation, the yellow mud swamp, the netherworld's curtain of darkness, or Li family's fourth uncle's palm, everything was turned to ashes. The Delta Origi and the others had quickly retreated the moment the flame dragon appeared, leaving behind a few unlucky fellows who had just escaped their slaughter to welcome the world-ending dragon flame. Boom boom boom, a series of explosions sounded, and more than half of the yellow mud swamp within a dozen miles evaporated, revealing the corpses of monsters, including Gong Lianghui, who carried Li family's fourth uncle's spirit body. Li family's fourth uncle tried his best to force out Ling Shiqi's true trump card, but in the end, he only managed to force out half of it. Ling Shiqi's face was pale as he withdrew the golden earth dragon flame's fire seed. In just a few breaths, the fire seed had weakened a lot, and he quickly sent it into his spirit sea to slowly nourish it. He glanced around and found that some people were already rushing over. He turned to the Delta Origi and said, "There's no time to explain, quickly enter the underworld. We have to leave this place quickly." Then, he sent the three of them into the underworld, and disappeared in a flash of tricolored light. Just as Ling Shiqi was teleported out, a 9-colored light suddenly flashed in the air, and a young girl appeared out of thin air. She was Meng Tian Tian of the 10,000 Wonders sect. Her eyes were filled with interest, and she murmured, "Interesting, very interesting, this is the seed I'm most satisfied with." But in that case, they would immediately become enemies. So at this time, they began to be wary of each other. Lei Haoyan was also aware of this. He suddenly stopped and did something crazy. He actually threw out the heavenly thunderfire bead. With his strength, the heavenly thunderfire bead shot into the distance like a meteor. Yan Mu and others paused for a moment, and then they ignored Lei Haoyan and went straight to the heavenly thunderfire bead. In their view, their purpose was to get the heavenly thunderfire bead. Now that it was not in Lei Haoyan's hands, what was the point of continuing to chase him? What was more, the heavenly thunderfire bead could not fall into the hands of others, so they strangely bypassed Lei Haoyan and chased after the heavenly thunderfire bead. "A bunch of idiots," Ling Shiqi said softly. Lei Haoyan also thought so. If those people didn't care about the heavenly thunderfire bead and forced Lei Haoyan to use the power of oneness of heaven and men first, then he would lose the qualification to compete for the heavenly thunderfire bead, then Lei Haoyan would really have no chance. But now Lei Haoyan was still standing here. At most, he just consumed some spiritual force, and it didn't even affect his combat effectiveness too much. Next, as long as he met up with the experts under him, he would still be the strongest party. Lei Haoyan also understood that the heavenly thunderfire bead would become the target of siege in anyone's hands. Instead of being besieged, it was better to let the others fight first and weaken their strength. Only the person who had the last laugh would be the winner. In the yellow mud swamp, Lei Haoran, Lei Haoqing, and Lei Haoyun were still supervising the battle. The three of them had joined forces to kill several people on Lei Haoyan's side. As long as they continued, they would eradicate Lei Haoyan's henchmen sooner or later. But they never expected that Lei Haoyan, who was filled with boundless killing intent, would actually come back. Lei Haoqing immediately said in shock, "You, why did you come back?" Lei Haoran and Lei Haoyun looked back and saw no one. They all guessed that Lei Haoyan took the initiative to give up the heavenly thunderfire bead. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to come back alone. Lei Haoyan looked at the several corpses on the ground. Those were all his brothers who had gone through life and death with him. He roared, and tyrannical purple flames immediately rose around his body. This kind of flame soaked the sky. The strange thing was that this was clearly a flame, and it should be incomparably hot. However, everyone felt a pain of ice and fire intertwining. Looking carefully, those purple flames actually turned into the shape of ice crystals, resplendent and terrifying. Purple crystal frost flame. When did you possess a heavenly flame? You hid it so well. Lei Haoyun and the other two were all shocked. The big brother in front of them was able to hide from their intelligence network and secretly refine a heavenly flame. Under Lei Haoyan's rage, he used his extremely dense cultivation to unleash the purple crystal frost flame. With a wave of his hand, his might was unparalleled. Cold flames filled the sky, and in an instant, 4 people were killed by him. Lei Haoqing's face turned ashen, because 3 of the 4 people were his men. His forces were originally the weakest, and this time, he could be considered to have suffered a great loss. At the same time, he was also shocked by Lei Haoyan's strength. Their strongest subordinates had all gone to chase after the heavenly thunderfire pearl, and none of them could stop Lei Haoyan for a moment. If this continued, Lei Haoyan's side would be able to suppress their 3 forces. However, Lei Haoran and the others could only watch helplessly. None of the 3 of them had a strong cultivation talent. The strongest was Lei Haoran, who was only at the spirit vein stage. He didn't even have the qualifications to interfere. The most important thing was that the heavenly thunderfire pearl wasn't here. What were they fighting for? Thus, the 3 of them shouted in tacit understanding, "Stop! All of you, stop!" Hearing this, everyone retreated. They didn't want to fight Lei Haoyan head-on, or rather, they didn't dare to. In this short period of time, a total of 6 people had died. Lei Haoyan's strength was too terrifying. Lei Haoyan also sneered and retracted his hand. 3 royal brothers, this is a good opportunity to eliminate me. Why aren't you fighting anymore? Chapter 678. Lei Haoran said in a deep voice, "Big brother, you are indeed very strong, more powerful than we expected, but the heavenly thunderfire bead is not here. Our battle is meaningless, isn't it?" Lei Haoyan put away the purple crystal frost flame and said with his hands behind his back, "You're not stupid, but your subordinates are not smart enough. Guess who among those at the late stage of Gang's spirit realm can get the heavenly thunderfire bead? Or, a few of them have died." As soon as he said this, Lei Haoqing and the others suddenly became pale. They could almost imagine what had happened, and they couldn't help but curse secretly. But at this moment, the strongest spirit cultivators in their hands were still fighting with each other, weakening each other's strength. And Lei Haoyan had joined up with his own people. Even if their joint strength was still far beyond Lei Haoyan's, it was impossible for them to join hands so easily. At the same time, they also had a hope in their hearts, that was, would their own people get the heavenly thunderfire bead? So everyone had their own ideas, and then they rushed to the other battlefield with everyone. And the dozen people here had reached the white-hot stage. Looking from afar, one could see the sword light and the roaring sound of 10 miles. Among the thousands of people present, Yen Mu of the illusory sword sect, Wei Ruishi of the bright mirror palace, and the puppet master of the mechanical city were the most powerful. Yen Mu held a 7th-level spirit sword, and there was a dreamy sword light flashing when he waved his hand. Wei Ruishi was a spirit cultivator, and there were countless translucent mirrors condensed by astral wind around him, suppressing the 3 of them with his own strength. And the puppet master of the mechanical city followed Lei Haoyan, the 13th prince. The puppet master controlled 2 huge bronze puppets at the same time. Not only was he powerful, but he was also invulnerable. And there were all kinds of strange abilities, which made everyone feel very tricky. When Lei Haoran and the others arrived here, several people from each side had died. Seeing their arrival, Wei Ruishi quickly formed a seal, and in an instant, the countless mirrors shattered with a loud bang. Fragments swept in all directions, and everyone quickly retreated to block them. Wei Ruishi stretched out his hand, and the Gang Qi turned into a big hand and grabbed the heavenly thunderfire bead. The expressions of the other princes and their subordinates immediately changed. Without another word, they attacked Wei Ruishi and Lei Haoran's group. Wei Ruishi's expression also darkened. He thought that he was very strong, but he was definitely not as freakish as Lei Haoyan. He shouted loudly, "Set up the formation." Hearing this, Lei Haoran's men immediately revealed a strange booth. It seemed chaotic, but there was a hidden rhythm. The remaining dozen people of Lei Haoran were connected with each other. They even blocked the joint attack of more than 30 masters of Gang's spirit realm. Lei Haoran was overjoyed. "Let's go. We have less than 2 hours left. When I ascend the throne, all of you will be feudal officials." Wei Ruishi and the others were shocked. Why did they follow Lei Haoran? It was all for the sake of obtaining more resources. However, none of them expected that one of the people in the formation would suddenly throw a punch at the person next to him. The heavy spirit highland caused the spirit cultivator to spit out a mouthful of blood and was seriously injured. At the same time, the puppet master of the mechanical city controlled 2 puppets to dash around like a meat tank, breaking up their formation. Lei Haoran, Wei Ruishi, and the others were all shocked. The puppet master himself shuttled through the crowd like a fish. When Wei Ruishi was not paying attention, he grabbed the heavenly thunderfire bead. "Qian Haosi, how dare you betray me?" Lei Haoran gnashed his teeth and said. The one who attacked just now, Qian Haosi, smiled and said, "Your Highness, I am not your man. How can I betray you?" The puppet master grabbed the heavenly thunderfire bead and handed it to Lei Haoyan, the 13th prince. Lei Haoyan held the heavenly thunderfire bead in his hand openly and said, "The heavenly thunderfire bead is in my hand. If you want to take it away, it's very simple. Just kill me." When he said this, everyone secretly felt that it was not good. It was true that these princes came to fight for the heavenly thunderfire bead. Many followers also fought with each other, but they never thought of killing the princes. Lei Haoyan's cultivation was only in the spiritual pulse realm. If they really wanted to kill him, it was too easy. But the problem was that Lei Haoyan just stood there and let them kill him. Who dared to kill him? Just now, they chased Lei Haoyan not to kill him, but to force him out of the air scar sky. Everyone had to admire Lei Haoyan's courage and shrewdness. Lei Haoyan said, 13th brother, it's true that no one here dares to kill you, but we can kill your followers. When you're all alone, I have 100 ways to force you to hand over the heavenly thunderfire pearl. Immediately, Lei Haoyan waved his arm and the purple crystal frost flame rushed to the puppet master. The others' eyes also lit up. They immediately changed their target and wanted to kill Lei Haoyan's followers. The puppet master gave Lei Haoyan a meaningful glance, and a series of cracking sounds could be heard from Lei Haoyan's body. Everyone turned their heads to look, and it turned out that Lei Haoyan's body was actually covered with a puppet shell. This puppet had 8 legs. Lei Haoyan poured his spiritual energy into it, and then he turned into a shadow and fled quickly. His speed was even faster than the late stage of the Gang's spirit realm. Chapter 679. Most importantly, there were not many people who still had the strength to chase after Lei Haoyan. At most, there were only 5 or 6 people. Even if they did chase after Lei Haoyan, would they be able to stop him? At that time, they would not be able to stop him. Instead, they would be killed. The other 3 princes were also filled with hatred. At this moment, they finally understood that their own strength was the most important thing. It was also the most secure thing. If they also had the strength of one with the heavens, they would not have allowed Lei Haoyan to be so arrogant. But now that Lei Haoyan had escaped with the heavenly thunderfire pearl, they could not do anything. Even if they killed all of Lei Haoyan's subordinates, what was the use? Once Lei Haoyan became the crown prince, or even the emperor, what awaited them would be death. However, the next scene was something that no one had expected. Just as Lei Haoyan felt that victory was in his grasp, and Lei Haoran and the others were filled with despair, an unexpected person suddenly made a move. Demonic chi filled the sky as the shadow of a demonic god appeared. A blood-stained demonic sword slashed down, causing countless ghosts to howl. It was as if hell had appeared. Demonic flash epiphyllum. At the same time, a sword formed in the void. Thousands of sword chi of absolute star shot out and surrounded everyone. Sword chi overflowed and the sound of swords whistled. Lei Haoyan was shocked. There was actually such an expert in void scar sky? Facing the demonic flash epiphyllum, even Lei Haoyan felt that he could not block it. Unless he used the strength of one with the heavens, he would lose the right to compete. Void scar sky was about to open. With the heavenly thunderfire pearl in his hand, he could not fall at the last moment. The purple crystal frost flame filled the sky and formed a huge purple crystal arrow that shot towards the hellish sword light. The remaining people were also in a hurry to block the sword chi of absolute star. They were all stunned because they recognized the person who had made the move. The Deputy General of the Dark Thunder Guards, Lu Xingji. They were stunned not only because of Ling Shiqi's strength, but also because of his identity. The Dark Thunder Guards were directly under Lei Qingjun. Logically speaking, they should not and could not participate in the fight between factions. In other words, they had to remain neutral. Then why was he fighting for the heavenly thunderfire pearl? Could it be that he had secretly sided with one of the princes? He was waiting for the final critical moment to make his move. While everyone was puzzled, Ling Shiqi and Lei Haoyan's attacks had already collided. The Hell Devil Saber and the Amethyst Arrow collided fiercely. In an instant, the horrible spiritual power swept out. Even the masters of Gang's spirit realm not far away had to retreat quickly. With the two of them as the center, the area within a radius of 3,000 feet was instantly turned into a deep, charred pit. There was a saber mark that was so deep that the bottom could not be seen. There were also specks of purple flames drifting around it. However, upon closer inspection, one could see that Lei Haoyan's armor had been shattered. This time, Ling Shiqi won. Lei Haoyan's body was invaded by the demonic chi, and his movements became stiff. If he used his full strength, he definitely wouldn't be defeated, and could easily force out the demonic chi, but he couldn't do so. Ling Shiqi did not spare Lei Haoyan. With a wave of his hand, starlight surged, and dozens of thick starlight chains instantly bound Lei Haoyan's body. Then Ling Shiqi used remnant wind thunder light steps and snatched the heavenly thunderfire bead. Lei Haoyan forcibly broke free from several starlight chains. His eyes were red, and he roared, "Lu Xingji! What do you mean? You Dark Thunder Guards have always been neutral. Why are you snatching my heavenly thunderfire bead now? You dare to intervene in the fight for the crown. If Father knows, you can't escape the blame, and no one can save you." He thought that Ling Shiqi was going to support the new emperor, save his life and take the throne in turn. The three princes and many spirit cultivators at the back also revealed looks of doubt. The Dark Thunder Guards would definitely remain neutral, otherwise, if this kind of network of information belonged to a certain prince, then there would be no need for the others to fight for it. What's more, the Dark Thunder Guards was a forbidden area that the princes did not dare to touch. It was tantamount to touching Lei Qingjuan's reverse scale and causing a great disaster. Hearing Lei Haoyan's question, Ling Shiqi shrugged and said, "Just as His Highness said, the fight for the crown is not something I can participate in, so I snatched the heavenly thunderfire bead not to target His Highness. I can only say that you have all committed a great taboo." Great taboo? What great taboo? Lei Haoyan was even more puzzled. Ling Shiqi shook his head and did not say anything. He only thought that these princes were usually more scheming than the other. But in front of the fight for the crown, especially after seeing the heavenly thunderfire bead, they all lost their sense of propriety. In his opinion, these princes had already failed from the beginning. Seeing that Leng Shiqi did not speak, Lei Haoqing immediately shouted, "Lord Lu, give me the heavenly thunderfire bead, and I will give you whatever you want in the future." Lei Haoran continued, "Lord Lu, we have some friendship in the Cloud Tower Demon Palace. The Green Feather Wind Forest Fan is a 7th level artifact. I said I would give it to you, and I will give it to you. As long as you give me the heavenly thunderfire bead, there will definitely be a place for you in the Thunderfire dynasty." Lei Haoyun could not hold back anymore. He cupped his hands and said with a smile, "Let's not talk too much. Everyone knows my reputation. Even if someone else really ascends to the throne, Lord Lu may not be able to get anything. I'm afraid you will even be killed. Only I can guarantee that I will give Lord Lu everything he wants." Lei Haoyan did not speak. He was still secretly trying to break through the shackles of the Heavenly Star Lock and give it a try. The 3 princes expressed their goodwill at the same time. This was a treatment that Leng Shiqi had never received before. However, Leng Shiqi still said indifferently, "Apologies, Your Highnesses. You all want the heavenly thunderfire bead, so who should I give it to? Why don't you all fight it out first, and then decide who to give it to in the end?" The 3 princes' faces darkened. Leng Shiqi was clearly playing with them. They looked at each other and said at the same time, "Kill." Since they refused a toast, then they would drink a forfeit. At this time, all the spirit cultivators charged towards Leng Shiqi. Who would have thought that Leng Shiqi would fly into the sky with 4 wings on his back? In the blink of an eye, he was only a small black dot. "Everyone, I will take my leave first. See you in Void Scar." Everyone's expressions were all different. Who would have thought that Leng Shiqi would have the ability to fly? How were they going to fight him? The 4 princes, including Lei Haoyan, were all in despair. Lei Haoqing even roared, "No." Leng Shiqi flew in the sky for a long time. He found a secluded place and released Delta Origi and the others from the underworld. There was no time to talk. Then, a force wrapped around them and sent them out of Void Scar. The battle of the Crown Prince had finally come to an end, but no one had expected it to end in a way that no one wanted to see. None of the 4 princes managed to snatch the heavenly thunderfire bead. Chapter 680. In the palace courtyard, hundreds of figures bathed in golden light appeared. These were the people sent out from Scar Sky. What made people sigh was that 3 days ago, more than 200 people went in, but when they came out, only half of them were left. Some of the people who died accidentally died in dangerous places, some of the princes died fighting with each other, and most of them died at the hands of Leng Shiqi. Those who had been watching the battle outside also looked over. Most of them did not look too good. They had all seen their own people die in Scar Sky. This time, it could be said that all the forces had people die, including the Dark Thunder Guards and the Discipline Commission. As for Li Juecheng, he was the one with the worst expression. When he saw Li Gang and Gong Lianghui die, he knew that the assassination of Leng Shiqi had failed again. Especially when he saw Leng Shiqi appear intact with his own eyes, he wanted to rush up and tear him to pieces. At the same time, he was also surprised and doubtful. He could not understand how Leng Shiqi escaped the siege of dozens of Gang Spirit Realm Masters. Even Li Zhuge and Li family's 4th uncle could not do anything to him with the spiritual attachment. No one paid attention to Li Juecheng. They were most concerned about who got the heavenly thunderfire bead. Everyone looked at Lei Haoyan and the other 3 princes, but the 4 princes' faces were as dark as the bottom of a pot. They did not look like they got the heavenly thunderfire bead. This puzzled everyone. At the same time, they were very curious about what happened in Scar Sky, because it was difficult for them to speculate the situation inside from the jade plates outside. The 4 princes all looked at Leng Shiqi with hatred. Many people also noticed this. While they were puzzled, Leng Shiqi took out a bead from his mustard bracelet. It was the heavenly thunderfire bead. Everyone's eyes began to slowly widen. The heavenly thunderfire bead was not in the hands of any of the princes, but in the hands of Ling Shiqi. What was going on? Didn't the Dark Thunder Guards not participate in the battle for the throne? Or did this Lu Xingji ignore the rules of the Dark Thunder Guards? They had all guessed that any prince could obtain the heavenly thunderfire bead. Even Lei Haoqing had a chance. However, no one had ever thought that the heavenly thunderfire pearl would be taken away by an outsider. Eunuch Du said, "Silence." The crowd quieted down immediately. They wanted to see how Lei Qingjun would deal with this matter. Eunuch Du continued, "The heavenly thunderfire bead was not obtained by a certain prince, but by the deputy chief of the Dark Thunder Guards, Lord Lu. Now, may I ask Lord Lu, which prince do you support?" The four princes who were glaring angrily at Ling Shiqi now looked over with longing in their eyes. They still had a glimmer of hope. As for the others, their eyes were about to pop out. In the end, the crown prince would be decided by a deputy director of the Dark Thunder Guards. It could also be said that the Ling Shiqi would decide the future emperor. So, how would he choose? Eunuch Gao's eyes flashed. He thought to himself, this brat is really daring. He dares to play with the four princes. It seems that he has guessed His Majesty's intention. Delta Origi, Yushu, and Xiongming were people who knew Ling Shiqi better. They knew that he would not give the heavenly thunderfire pearl to any of the princes. Otherwise, he would have violated the taboo of the Dark Thunder Guards. At this moment, everyone's eyes were gathered on Ling Shiqi. However, he smiled and walked to Lei Qingjun with the heavenly thunderfire pearl in his hands. "I am a subject of the heavenly thunderfire dynasty. Who should be given the heavenly thunderfire pearl and who should ascend to the throne is naturally up to His Majesty." Everyone present was stunned. What did Ling Shiqi mean? Was he going to offend all the princes? However, there were also people who quickly reacted and secretly praised Ling Shiqi for his intelligence. In fact, if he gave the heavenly thunderfire pearl to any of the princes, it meant that he would no longer remain neutral. No matter what would happen in the future, he would not be able to get past Lei Qingjun first. On the contrary, if he gave the heavenly thunderfire pearl to Lei Qingjun, he would be greatly appreciated by His Majesty. Lei Haoyan and the others' faces darkened. They began to curse Ling Shiqi in their hearts. "You don't want the heavenly thunderfire pearl. Why don't you give it to them?" However, Lei Qingjun suddenly laughed. This made everyone's hearts tighten. They immediately turned their attention to him. Lei Qingjun stood up. To their surprise, he did not care about who the heavenly thunderfire pearl belonged to. Instead, he said something to Eunuch Du. Then, Eunuch Du picked up a huge plate. On it were plates of different colors. He respectfully held them in front of Lei Qingjun. Everyone was puzzled. They also saw that the plates on the plate were divided into 3 colors. There were only 3 gold plates at the top. Next were silver plates. There were more than 30 of them. Below that were black plates. There were the most of them. There were 50 to 60 of them. Only then did he say, "Give it to me." Hearing this, Ling Shiqi stepped forward and presented the heavenly thunderfire pearl. Lei Qingjun held the heavenly thunderfire pearl. His face was expressionless. "You have done well." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Ling Shiqi lowered his head. "You can leave now. I will not treat you unfairly." This humble subject obeys. Ling Shiqi returned to Eunuch Gao's side. Lei Qingjun turned his head and asked the princes, "You all want it, don't you?" Lei Haoyan and the other princes lowered their heads. They still did not understand Lei Qingjun's meaning. However, they could tell that there were other secrets and motives behind this crown prince battle. They did not dare to say anything. However, they were all shouting in their hearts. Of course they wanted it. Lei Qingjun looked at them. How could he not know what they were thinking? He laughed coldly and said, "I cannot sit on the throne for the rest of my life. On the contrary, I do not have much time left. This throne will be yours sooner or later." This son does not dare, Lei Haoqing said respectfully. You do not dare? Lei Qingjuan's expression was one of disappointment. What a good, you do not dare. I am not dead yet, but all of you are already impatient. The Thousand Illusions Sword Sect, the Bright Mirror Palace, and the Mechanical City. You all are quite cunning. All of these top sects are willing to submit to you. If I live for a few more years, you will be able to bring your own forces into the palace, right? The four princes were immediately covered in cold sweat. They knelt down one after another. Their faces were pale and they were sweating profusely. They shouted in unison, "This son does not dare." At this moment, they finally understood. Opening Void Scar Sky wasn't to choose a successor. Their father wanted to use his birthday banquet as an opportunity to gather all the sects in the world. He wanted to see which sects would participate in the battle for the throne. This birthday banquet was just a trap from beginning to end. Chapter 681. As one of the three great dynasties, the Thunderfire dynasty was not the most fearful of the Starfall dynasty and the Northern Wei dynasty. Even though the Starfall dynasty was very powerful, they were still separated by the 6 countries of the western region. No matter which side wanted to attack the other side, they would be detected in advance. Furthermore, the Thunderfire dynasty was not much weaker than the Starfall dynasty. As long as the people of the Starfall dynasty did not go crazy, they would not easily attack the Thunderfire dynasty. To the Thunderfire dynasty, the biggest hidden danger came from the inside, which was the spirit cultivator sects. Especially the top and first-rate sects. These sects had been rooted for hundreds and thousands of years. They had a boundless foundation and were powerful. Some of them had even become countries within countries. Every one of them was a restless time bomb. Ever since the establishment of the Thunderfire dynasty, they had been using all kinds of methods to suppress the spirit cultivator sects. Thus, the Discipline Commission and the Dark Thunder Guards appeared, one in the open and one in the dark. From then on, the Thunderfire dynasty and the spirit cultivator sects entered a rare period of peace. However, this was not a long-term plan, because there were already many sects that were dissatisfied with the existence of the Discipline Commission and the Dark Thunder Guards. Thus, the biggest problem in front of Lei Qingjun was how to deal with these spirit cultivator sects. His lifespan was about to end, and he had been a mediocre ruler for his entire life. However, he was unwilling. Lei Qingjun wanted to pave a path for his descendants before he died. He wanted to do something crazy before he died. Thus, there was this birthday banquet and the so-called Crown Prince competition. He used the name of the birthday banquet to purposely gather all the top and first-rate sects in the Thunderfire dynasty in the imperial capital. Then, he secretly released the news that he would open the Crown Prince competition in the Void Scar Sky. He wanted to give the princes a chance to rope in the spirit cultivator sects. It also gave them a chance to bribe the Duke's manor, General's manor, and the ministers in the imperial capital. Once a prince successfully roped in a spirit cultivator sect, in Lei Qingjuan's heart, that person would no longer have any fate with the throne. As for the sects and families that relied on the princes, they were all recorded and placed in front of Lei Qingjun. Lei Qingjun flipped the plate over, and the various colored plates scattered on the ground. Everyone finally saw what was on the plate. Behind the 3 golden plates were the top sects, Thousand Illusionary Sword Sect, Bright Mirror Palace, and Mechanical City. The silver plates belonged to the first-rate sects, while the black plates belonged to the various marquis residences and generals' residences. What caused everyone to tremble in fear was that all the signs had been slashed with cinnabar, as if they were criminals who were about to be beheaded. Lei Qingjuan's trap could be considered to have tricked all of the princes and the strongest sections. Immediately, the faces of the spirit cultivator sects turned green and red. Of course, there were also sects that remained neutral, secretly rejoicing. Although they did not know what Lei Qingjun would do next, it would not be anything good. Fortunately, it had nothing to do with them. The people of these sects wanted to leave. However, as soon as the humble prince took action, the entire royal palace was covered in a formation with buzzing noises. Seeing this scene, everyone's heart skipped a beat. Someone asked, "Your Majesty, what is the meaning of this?" Lei Qingjun sat back down on the dragon throne and said indifferently, "My birthday banquet hasn't started yet, and everyone wants to leave. I want to invite the world to a banquet, so I ask everyone to stay here for a few more days." Lei Qingjun, I don't care what you are planning. It has nothing to do with my 10,000 Laws sect. What if I insist on leaving? Elder Bu of the 10,000 Laws sect said unyieldingly. Lei Qingjun did not say anything. At this time, 8 figures suddenly descended from the sky. The appearance of these 8 people gave off a feeling of black clouds pressing down on the city, causing the world to change. They were all Sky Origin stage experts. Including the humble prince, that was 9 Sky Origin stage experts. It could be said that 99% of the people present had never seen so many Sky Origin stage experts appear at the same time in their lives. Elder Bu's expression froze, and a hint of struggle appeared on his face. In the end, he obediently sat down. He could see that Lei Qingjun wanted to play big this time. Fortunately, the 10,000 Laws sect did not participate in the battle for the throne. Otherwise, no matter how strong the 10,000 Laws sect was, they would not be able to withstand the full attack of the Thunderfire dynasty. He also could not give Lei Qingjun any information that could be used against him. Right now, he could only remain silent. The 8 Sky Origin stage experts appeared. Just by standing there in the air, they caused everyone to be unable to breathe. One of them flicked his finger, and immediately, dozens of streams of light scattered in all directions, instantly taking away the lives of dozens of people below. No matter what cultivation they had, no matter what status they had, in front of a Sky Origin stage expert, they were nothing. And the people who died were the spirit cultivator sects and marquises who had sided with the princes. In other words, they were the people who were engraved on the tablets. Including Yen Mu, Wei Ruishi, and the puppet master. It turned out that those tablets were really the talismans of death. No one dared to make a sound. Lei Haoyan and the other 3 princes had completely lost their usual composure. They were all scared out of their wits. Lei Qingjun took out a palm-sized golden seal. This was the imperial jade seal that symbolized the highest authority of the Thunderfire dynasty. With a weak but shocking voice, he said, "Announce the imperial decree. Annihilate the 1,000 illusionary sword sect, Bright Mirror Palace, Mechanical City, Flying Frost Villa, Silver Hoop Gang, confiscate Duke Qin's mansion, Miyuan Marquis Mansion, General Jinbei's mansion. Leave no one alive." Every time he said a name, everyone's heart trembled violently. They couldn't even believe their ears. They also couldn't believe that the person who said this was the Emperor of the Middle, Lei Qingjun. After Lei Qingjun finished speaking, the clumsy king knelt on one knee and said, "I accept the order." The 12 armies have already set off for the 3 top sections. The experts of the Imperial Hall of Worship have also been teleported there. The Imperial Guards have already prepared. The Marquises' mansions can all be killed by tonight. Perhaps it was an illusion, but after the clumsy king finished speaking, there seemed to be waves of miserable cries coming from outside the palace, causing everyone to tremble. Leng Shiqi was also secretly sweating. Fortunately, he didn't auction off the Thunderfire Pearl. Otherwise, he would have been a corpse by now. He had already guessed that Lei Qingjun would use this opportunity to cause trouble for the spirit cultivator sects, but he didn't expect Lei Qingjun to be this crazy. What was Lei Qingjun doing? He wanted to become enemies with all the spirit cultivator sects in the Thunderfire dynasty. Lei Qingjun could no longer be described as crazy. He had already gone mad. Lei Qingjun, who had been a conservative ruler all his life, had such a bold and crazy determination before his death. It was foreseeable that in the next period of time, an unprecedented bloodbath would occur in the imperial capital and the Thunderflame dynasty. You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.